Oh, hello world. I'm your host, Adam Mighty Mike, and on this episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about what game has the most hackers. Today's guest is Luke Dupin. Luke is a professional hacker. He has created a hacking game. Luke writes hard and fast as he continuously innovates. Luke is a computer scientist and AI expert who successfully took an AI image generation model to deployment. It's a lot of fun because you can draw things and it will generate an image based off the drawing or just prompt the server with the text that you want. Not only is it free, it's fast and fun, and that's called value. And because of that, you should like this video. Remember that sharing is caring. Check out all Luke's information in the video description below. Please leave comments because they improve ranking and add prominence. Subscribing is what winners do, but smashing the bell is what legends do. This channel breeds legends. But first, AI news. There's a new skill set of hacking added to the world of cybersecurity and AI. It's called prompt engineering. University of Sheffield scientists have discovered that natural language processing tools such as ChatGPT can be tricked into producing malicious code that could lead to cyber attacks. The study demonstrates that NLP models can be exploited to attack real-world computer systems in a wide range of industries. The results also show that AI models are vulnerable to simple backdoor attacks that could be triggered at any time to steal information or deny services through prompt engineering. In fact, our guest today has created a first-of-its-kind interactive hacker video game that involves prompt engineering. Tell the world about you.
Yeah, computer scientist, mathematician, racer, product developer. I think those are some of the buzzwords I'd use to describe myself.
Good. Yeah, talk about running motor. How old were you when you first started riding motocross?
Yeah, 10 years old. So started riding dirt bikes when I was like 8 or 9 years old. Got my own when I was 10. Started racing when I was 11. My brother and I got into the higher amateur ranks. We went to amateur nationals in Washougal for 7 years in a row. A lot of interesting stories there. I got a body full of metal to prove that I'm an old motocrosser. Mm-hmm. And then about a decade ago, 2012, 13, 14, and 15, we got into racing down in Mexico in the Baja. So one of my friends was having a bachelor party, and we were all talking about what would be awesome, and we decided that putting together a hodgepodge team to go down and race the Baja 500. Showed up not really knowing anything, managed to finish the race, and then we came back for several years after that and did the whole series. And never placed in the podium, but got pretty darn close. There's about 25, 30 teams there, and so we were top 5 most of the time.
That's awesome. What an exciting time.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's an entire lifetime of experience every time you do it. I got hit by cars. We had one where the electrical system in the bike broke off. The rheostat is what charges the battery, and it got lodged in the rear suspension. And then the guy had to go by moonlight for 40 miles. And so in doing that, he crashed and separated his shoulders, all jacked up. And so I was the backup rider on that section and had to strip parks off of my pre-runner bike, basically haywire together. And then we duct taped mag lights onto my head because the battery was dead. And so it was going to take the bike a while to even see if electrically we got it all right. And then jumped on and did 140 miles in the dark. And so I was like 20 miles in before I was able to even turn the headlight on to see if it was going to work. Yeah, so just crazy experiences. Every race has its own wild adventure that happens.
Damn, you guys are just dedicated.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really miss it. I don't think I miss doing it on 2 wheels anymore, just because it's, like I said, I've been hit by a car. One of my friends ran into a cow, just all kinds of crazy stuff. Cop cars pull you over and try and extort money out of you in the middle of the race. So if we go back down and do it again, I think being in a roll cage would be the right way to go.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You need to elaborate on all those things. So, first off, how many bones have you broken?
Oh, that's a good question. Big bones? Big bones, I've done 3. Small bones, I've done 7.
Ouch.
Yeah, so I broke my left arm, folded my arm over backwards on a motocross track, radius ulna. I popped my collarbone, crashing. One of the worst ones, I ripped out the guts of my knee and had to go back. I broke my back snowboarding. And then one of the pre-runs, I was doing about 55 miles an hour or so on a dirt road, about 40, 50 miles away from any civilization in any direction, and just missed a rock. I went from sitting on the bike, just cruising along this dirt road, kind of daydreaming, to my helmet grinding on the front wheel as the whole thing was coming up over the top of me. And that one, I tore the sac that holds your lung. I forget what it's called on my left side. I broke 3 ribs. I lacerated one of my kidneys, and then a lot of bumps and bruises. So managed to hobble away from that one, and still had to ride my bike the remaining distance back out. But yeah.
Damn. Damn. What keeps you motivated? Is it just the pure adrenaline?
Yeah, it's I think that all tech people suffer from a mind that's too busy, and we spend so much time doing kind of laborious work, but it's interesting in the sense of like puzzle solving to try and prove to yourself that you're an intelligent person. And so I think it's really healthy to have an outlet for that. I think the other way that you'll see it come out is people do a lot of distance running. So like a lot of software guys are into like marathons or like century bikes. I do that stuff too. And I think it's kind of like an addict mindset where you don't want to get into hard drugs, so you find other kinds of drugs that are a little healthier for you, and that's mine.
Good. No, that's an important thing, man. Have you ever Well, I run too. I try to do 1 marathon a year.
Yeah, good.
My goal is 100 miles a month. I most often fall short on that. Like, probably only put in 30 miles this month. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It's important to do that. Have you ever considered jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. So I was on the University of Idaho submission fighting team, jiu-jitsu primarily, gi. So we did that for 3.5 years in college. Had a lot of fun doing that. Got my ass handed to me over and over and over again. Yeah, I've thought a lot about getting back into it. It's hard on your knees. And so that's kind of my hesitation. But if one of my kids wanted to go do it, I think I'd probably dig my gi back out and go into it again.
Damn. Yeah, I hear that with people, that they say it's hard on their knees. Shit. I guess I could see that. Is that like when just pulling guard, or are you just doing stand-up?
I've never done stand-up. So yeah, it's only pulling guard. It's not even that. I think it's the rear. Well, two main moves is the triangles is hard. There's a lot of force on your ACL when you're pulling in that triangle.
Yeah, if you're trying to pull a triangle. Yeah.
Yep. And the rear naked choke, because you're putting your knees in, and then there's a lot of lateral force trying to hold their legs open and keep them from kind of squeezing their legs together and popping your legs out the top. And so I think those two things are what really tears the knee up. And unfortunately, the rear naked choke, I mean, that's a move you're trying to constantly land on people. So you end up doing that at least once or twice every meet, hopefully, if things are going well.
Yeah, so that's cool. So the University of Idaho had a competitive team.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. 2 guys put it together. They were blue and purple belts. So not real high-end practitioners, but very competent, and ran it in a very serious but fun way. And so we traveled and did some meets and things like that.
Yeah, dude, I've been finding that jiu-jitsu is like the network for a lot of like people in the world of tech.
Yeah,
all sorts of things. Because, man, I don't know. I'm that guy who just tries to force it on everybody.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing to
force.
force.
I try to go at least once a week. So
cool.
Yeah, but so now, are you still racing? What are you doing to satisfy your high?
Yeah, so all my racing has been endurance racing. So I got into triathlons in 2004 2015 was my first triathlon. I don't know how many I've done. I've got a wall full of finisher medals. Really enjoyed the Olympic tri. I got into doing more serious distance running, so I did my first 50K this September. I did it self-supported. I wanted to see if I could go out there all by myself and set up my own aid stations and not rely on people cheering for me or anyone giving me high fives to see if I'd still be able to do it. So that was cool. Managed to complete it. I did it slower than I wanted. So
good for you.
Yeah, it was fun.
Damn. Okay, so you had to put a lot of foresight into that, like where you're gonna set up your own aid station. Huh?
Yep.
You had to drive there to the course route and set it up and everything.
Yep. Drop off sandwiches and water and all that stuff. And so a lot of what I do now, I just trail ride on my dirt bike. I don't race competitively on the dirt bike. I probably never will again. It's just too dangerous. I'm 40 now, and I just don't crash and get up the way I used to. But I do a lot of trail riding, so I'll put in around I want to say 100 miles a month, but I'm probably closer to like 70 miles a month doing trail rides. So, and I end up always doing those solo, which is kind of sketchy. It'd be easy to really hurt something way out in the middle of nowhere. So I just try and be really good about telling everyone which trails I'm going to be on. Don't deviate.
Yeah, that's an important thing, man, especially given your history of just riding and then your head is in the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not to compare myself to Alex Honnold, but if you've listened to him talk when he's free soloing, he says he's only about like 60, 70%. And that's what I do when I'm out there. I think that's really the key of doing anything. This is semi-akin to the free solo, but obviously a little bit less so. I mean, like falling off a cliff is going to absolutely kill you, whereas crashing on a dirt bike and breaking a femur or hip, like you got a chance at living, as long as someone finds you in time. So, but it's the same type of thing. You want to be at about 70%. You want to be on trails, and you just are focusing on flow and never like even just dabbing a foot. If I dab a foot, I'm upset with myself. Like my bar that I hold myself to when I'm out there is absolute perfection. Just no mistakes at all ever. So,
damn. Well, I would hope so on a bike because you've got a lot of on risk.
Yeah, don't mess up.
Damn. So, what else do you do?
I think that's a lot. I've got kids, family, all that kind of boring stuff. I'm a real big time hiker backpacker is the other thing. So I've got a crew of 4 guys, including myself. And so we go out and we do some pretty serious bushwhacking. So we'll go 3-4 miles off trail, literally through the weeds to get up to different mountaintops and things like that. That's a lot of fun. We try and do like 1 to 2 bigger hikes, so somewhere in like the 40, 50 mile range. And we're looking to get more serious about that and start doing like 70 milers. So there's some like world-class 70 milers that are on our bucket list that we're kind of gearing up to go and do. So that's the other big thing, like summiting mountains. I don't ever want to go do the Alpine though. That's too hardcore. I don't want to fall into a crevasse.
I guess so. Well, that's what I do is the Alpine.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
A little ballsier than I am then.
Well, you know what? I disagree. I think okay, there's certain things I won't do. I've thought about it. And I'm not going to go summit Rainier. But I almost died on Mount Adams twice. A couple years ago. My sister and I and her husband, we were going up Mount Adams, and I fucked up and broke some rules, which was don't leave the group. That's the most important rule. And I left, and I went to the summit, but I got turned around up on the summit because when you're at the tip of the mountain, any deviation you make is a massive deviation further down. And before I knew it, I had slid uncontrollably down this glacier and smashed in some rocks down below. I'm lucky I didn't break nothing. And then at that point, I realized how bad I fucked up. And I was like, man, I should have just climbed back up to the top. But it was getting darker. So, and it's worse when it gets darker because it's hard to see any trail in the snow and whatnot. And so there's mixes of glaciers and draws and I was like 10 draws away, glaciers away from the actual trail. And I slipped. Yeah, happy I made it back, but it was sketchy as shit. And then the following day, I almost died again. Luckily, I was able to catch myself sliding uncontrollably down the glacier with my ice axe. So I was able to roll onto my stomach and do the hold on as I'm sliding down. And then I finally got onto my butt, and then I was able to control like a brake with my ice axe on the way down. But overall, Alpine is a lot of fun and is very safe if you follow the rules. The enchantments is pretty safe too.
Yeah, that one's on our list. We keep applying for that. We'll get there one of these days.
Yeah, it's just a matter of making yourself do it. You know, I got family that lives in Wenatchee, so sometimes when I go to Wenatchee, I'll drive up to the trailhead and I'll run up to Kolchak Lake and back because it's only 4 miles. And so it's just a matter, and it's better to trail run it than hike it. The enchantments, but it's beautiful. It really is. It's a gorgeous thing, man. So, and I did St. Helens, and that is cool. You got to check out St. Helens because there's nothing like seeing 100 nuclear bombs worth of devastation. You get to the top of that mountain and you see the left and right lateral limit, and you see what 100 nuclear bombs worth did. And it took one lake and it blew it into 4 separate lakes, geographically distant. It's impressive.
Wow.
There's no better summit I've seen than St. Helens. Everybody says the same thing. It's the easiest one to summit, and it's the most breathtaking view.
Cool.
And going up, you see all the volcanoes. You see Rainier only when you summit. And it's like when you get to the top, you see what happened. And then you see Rainier, and then you see all the other mountains, peaks in the distance taunting you, and they're all just like, yeah, wait till I blow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you watch exactly. St. Helens was one of the smaller ones. Mm-hmm. Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a small volcano. But yeah, you definitely do that. So what else you got planned for? All right. That's right. Just keep talking.
Yeah. Next things planned. I think that the big plan right now, where all my mental energy goes, is well, actually, just to circle before we get off that topic, then we can move off. As far as the safety thing goes, man, it's just so important to have a mental checklist of you can have one mistake happen at any given time and still be okay. It's when you start compounding those mistakes on top of each other, and they don't usually all happen at the same time. And so that's where a lot of that safety is, to have those mental contingency plans and backup equipment is what will end up saving your life, I found. So
for sure. Yeah. I'm just an idiot. I go headstrong into shit. I like a lot of things.
Yeah. So my mental focus lately, I've been a product developer for years and years. And so I've been really obsessed lately with trying to get to the next level of product development and starting to get like a franchise type system built out to release product into. The success rate is so terribly low if you look at the number of inventors versus how many get even just one customer, and then how many create a successful business off that, and then how many of those businesses are successful. And if you look at some groups of people, their alpha over that number is orders of magnitude higher. And yeah, they're smart, and yeah, they have great personalities. Those things are all true. They're talented, but they have a system and a network that they've built that just gives them repeatability. And so that's what I've been obsessed with studying over the last several years.
Yeah, it brings up some good points that I've noticed in this industry when it comes to like machine learning models. Is okay, it's a series of questions that I ask people. So the first is, what is money to you?
To me or to society?
Either or.
Either or. To society, it's a form of trust.
Okay.
So or faith maybe is a better word. It's a faith in things, faith in a government, faith in a exchange medium, faith in stability of the currency. Everyone has a mental model of how much money it takes to get certain things. Mm-hmm. So cars, houses, a burger, all this stuff. I think I don't think, for sure, in the last few years, everyone's that's been subverted for everyone, like their sense. I think maybe every time someone goes out to dinner in the last 6 months to a year, they've been kind of shocked by the bill or surprised by it at least. I know I have been. So I think a lot of that faith is being eroded. I was like really big in the crypto industry, and I still am very much a believer in it. I'm just really, really excited for the second wave. I think there's going to be a lot of actual usable stuff that comes with the second wave. So it's a great time to be into crypto right now. Like no one's talking about it yet, so you'll catch it if you're in it now. But yeah, that's what it is to me, or to society, I think. As far as what it is to me, honestly, I just don't even think about it a lot. Like I used to be obsessed with it, and I found that that's really part of the rat race. Like that's a mental trap. Mm-hmm. The focus that I have now is on adding value to people, being in good service to those that I think are trying to like accomplish important things, to try and help, to try and focus on being the kind of person that I would want to work with if I ran into me, and just being really available for people whenever I can. Sharing my wisdom that I've learned mostly through failure over the last 20 years. And my expectation is that, I firmly believe that the rising tide lifts all boats. And so my expectation is that I will get mine soon enough. Just focus on that. This last week, just a week ago, I was out running. I like to run at night.
Yeah, same, man.
It's the best, yeah. Even when it's cold. And so I was out, it was like 11:30 midnight, and I was out running by myself. And I was thinking to myself, like, what are you training for? Because I always run like I'm training for something. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had this moment of realization that the only thing that we can really do is train. I've always had the mindset that a race is just a celebration of the training that you've done leading up to it. Okay. It's an opportunity for friends and family to like kind of see the work, like the output of the work that you put in. Mm. And I very much equate that same mindset to money, so it's the training on how to manage it well, how to invest it well, how to be a good steward with it, to set up systems and processes ahead of time, even if you don't have as much money as you want, and to just focus on the training aspect of it. And if or when the money ever does come, then you'll be ready. It won't ruin you.
Yeah. So what is power?
Influence.
Oh, hold on. Influence is different.
I know.
The next question.
Yeah.
What's power?
What's power? I don't know. I guess, power would be like your ability to assert your will, your view of the world on the world, good, bad, or otherwise. We live in what's called the attention economy. I'm sure everyone's heard that. I have a slightly different view of it. It's true. First of all, it's completely true. But, the Napoleon Hill, so he wrote, Think and Grow Rich. Good book. A lot of it's kind of bullshit in the sense it's like you gotta, like it's applied focus is what actually changes and influences things. It's not just like hoping, like he talks about. But the underlying message is very much true, that the more people that believe a thing, the more that thing is actually true. Mm-hmm. And so, again, influence is kind of the way I describe power. But, with power, you would have the ability to make large groups of people believe something that you want to be true, actually be true.
Okay. So then what would influence be?
Yeah, I guess influence would be the actual execution of that power. So being able to, communicate a mission in a way that a story, like everyone, stories are the ways that people emotionally attach themselves to a cause. Mm-hmm. And so The Story Brand, if you've read that book, is phenomenal.
The Story Brand?
It's really good. It talks about building products in terms of a story, but basically speaking, it's like the King Arthur story. Guy Ritchie, phenomenal writer, director, talks about this. That the only kind of story we're telling is the hero's journey, because it's kind of the story that every single person wants their life to be. And so the story goes that, you were selected for greatness. The world put you low. You dealt with it. You kind of had a stiff upper lip. You worked your way through. You gained respect of your peers, even though they aren't the type of peer that, you were destined to have. And that there was this moment of turn when you were selected. You pull the sword from the stone. You're selected to take your seat. There's a struggle involved in you doing that. And in the end, you overcome, and you are the hero that, people talk about. And so that's what influence is figuring out ways to make. So it's not about you, the inventor, the person influencing. It's about the person listening. And so it's a way to make them a hero. It's a way to exalt them and glorify them and help them reach the, spot that they were destined to be at.
That's cool. That's a good way to put it. And the hero's journey.
Yep.
Good things that I ask these questions and people tell me things that I don't. I'm like Lex Friedman. I just ask simple, stupid questions and I see what people say. This is the last one that's of this. Well, no, there's a whole more. But the next one is the ancient Greeks identified this, and it's a real thing. They called it techne. So it's separate from power, separate from influence, it's separate from money. What is techne?
Would this be what Schwarzenegger calls the shmee?
I'm not sure.
It's that X factor some people have. It's cool to drive a tank, but if you're smoking a cigar while driving a tank, that's the shmee. Is that like techne, that you just have the bravado, the extra?
Oh, no.
What's the techne?
We'll go back to like Homer. I don't know if you're familiar with the ancient Greek things, but
not as much as I should be.
Okay, so basically you have techne. You took people can type into something and it generates an image. That's techne. Techne is the things that the technical ability that you can do that not all the money, influence, and power in the world could do.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know there's anything I could do that all that stuff couldn't do, but yeah, I mean, this is, I guess, everyone has a superpower, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you asking what my techne is, or what do I think about it?
Yeah, just, I guess, to think on it, to ponder it, that it exists, that it's an actual thing, along with the money, or along with influence, power, and techne. Sure. Those three.
So what I would actually say my techne is not what anyone else would say about me. I would call it an affliction. I would call it more of like an addiction and a curse is the way I would describe it. But I am obsessed with collecting ideas and trying to bring them to life. And so I have a notebook. Well, it used to be notebooks. I used to be the guy that would walk around with 3, 4, 5 notebooks. I'd go through like a half dozen of them a year. I eventually converted over to an iPad, which is great because now it's all organized, but I have literally hundreds of pages, maybe even 1,000 pages in there now of just product ideas. And a lot of times it will come to me at random times. So I'll be out running, I'll be out dirt biking in the middle of the night. Like just weeks ago, I woke up at 3 a.m. with this burning idea. I got up, wrote it down, forgot about it, picked it back up later. I'm just obsessed with this, and this isn't mine. It's gosh, I'm blanking on the guy's name. I want to say Kurt Field or something like that. And his book, but thinking of ideas as the muse. You probably know this. Gosh, what is that book? that brings that idea in. This is annoying. Pressfield is the name of the author. It'll come to me. But anyways, I actually agree that our ideas and that those are it's a life form, and it comes to us if we listen. And it comes to us with the expectation that we're not just going to hear it and then forget about it or ignore it and not action on it. And so, again, I look at it as a curse, but that these things come to me, and that it is my duty to at least talk with my fellow man about it and try and hand it off to somebody if I have no desire to go do anything about it. But yeah, I feel called to try and take these ideas that come into my head and turn them into real products.
Yeah, which brings up another good point in the world of machine learning space that's talked about. What is imagination?
Boy, imagination is a lot of different things. It could be your mind's eye. It could be a sense of imagination. It could be just the pattern matching that our brains naturally do of taking past experiences and combining those together. I don't know. I think there's a few different forms of imagination, and some of them are from us and some of them are come to us or given to us. I think some of them come from elsewhere, and we're more like a radio. If you're listening to FM radio, that music is not inside the receiver. It's picking that up by tapping into some kind of underlying frequency in the universe.
Yeah. So, imagination, okay, here's something for you. What is a favor?
A favor?
Yeah.
This is a favor that you're doing for me. Happy to be here.
Oh, well, no, likewise. Thank you, sir, for coming here.
Yeah, karma, all that stuff. I don't know that I necessarily believe in any of that. The world is this very harsh mechanical machine. I grew up as a Christian and very much a believer that there was this kind of divine inspiration that would guide the world and was trying to move things in certain ways and stuff. And I have completely reverted my opinion on that. The world is a lot of people with basic incentive mechanisms that are personalized to them, executing that against each other and for each other. And so what a favor would be within that world is it's kind of like a small investment in the people around you. So again, going back to that rising tide, I think it's really, really important to try and help those around you as much as you can. And you can look at it from a completely selfish point of view that, it's the better that my peers are doing, the better I'm likely to do. And so it's selflessly helping people with the hope that it comes back.
Yeah. So can you print a favor?
Boy, I print it. I don't know. I mean, I guess the way I would think of a favor is that, we all have limitations. And so when you butt up against one of those and it's a well-crafted ask in the sense that you're not putting upon the other person, it's something that is well within their capabilities to efficiently help get you to the next level. That's what I define a favor. So if that favor is money, that they need a couple grand to do some advertising campaign and that gets them over a hump, then yeah, you could print it effectively. I think favors come in all kinds of different forms.
Cool. And you mentioned it prior. So what is the purpose of business?
The purpose of business, so this is what really, really pisses me off is that inside of our public education system, there's this demonization of capitalism and business. Mm-hmm. And what it really is a complete misunderstanding of the entire system. Anyone that has spent any time in, entrepreneurship, to use that stupid buzzword at this point, but just they know that business is all about service. Mm-hmm. It's all about submitting to the market it's about taking enormous amounts of pain and disappointment and dashed hopes and dealing with that so that you can make the lives of your clients better and more fulfilled.
Yeah. Value adding. It's about adding value, and a lot of people get that messed up because if you're not adding value, you're not adding to truth and trust.
Yep.
And that's what business is based off of, is truth and trust.
Yep. Well, and it's not 100%. There's no like evil, well, there might actually be now, but there's no evil cabal of people out there trying to decide how they're going to subvert what business actually is and then communicate this falsehood down. I think what it comes from is that, you know, human beings don't think about infinite systems, and we think mostly in terms of zero-sum gains until we're educated otherwise. And so if you look at business in terms of a zero-sum game, then yeah, business is about how much you can take from people. But anyone that's spending real time in knows that it's not a zero-sum game. It's completely the opposite. The more that you give to the market means there's more to be given, and there's no limit to that ever. There never ever will be. And so, you know, all the I guess to wrap up that point, it's all a fear-based mindset of I'm not going to get mine, so I'm going to try and take from others. And, you know, that's very rarely a winning strategy.
Yeah, I agree. I've noticed that there is certain people haven't figured that out, and you touched on the education system too, and I think that's something that's really failing kids is, you know, they put you in a box in a room. It's a socialization process more than an education process, and they train you to a bell, like Pavlovian dog.
Yep.
And it breeds a slave mentality.
That's right.
So I don't know if you've noticed that, if you can touch on, you know, people who are stuck in this mentality. Oh
boy, yeah. I've thought a great deal about the education system and the shortcomings of it, and you're absolutely correct. It's, you know, our education system is built to create good taxpayers.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know, creating good citizens that are self-directed, take their local community issues personally, and then do something effective about it, are well-researched on history and specifically forms of government, forms of fiscal systems, where they've gone wrong, what to look for, how to try and adapt that into the future. Also being keen observers of human nature and researching incentive structures and how incentive structures are what guide society, and which ones of those are the most effective and why, and where those fall apart. You know, school doesn't try and teach you any of that kind of stuff. You know, it wants you to be able to follow tasks effectively, be able to do what your boss tells you, and like you said, to train you that authority is the absolute end in question and everything else. There's no room to question teachers. You know, you go to class at specific times. All this is to teach you that authority has everything under control. Don't question it. And that as long as you stay within the lines of authority, you're going to be a fantastic person. And maybe for most people that's true, but I would say it's not true for most people. And certainly for our best and brightest, it crushes them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's for sure. I have not it's been difficult transition for myself, working some jobs before I finally came to the realization that I'm wasting my time not working for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to butt heads with people over doing mindless, mundane shit, and I'm just selling myself short on my human capital. I think a lot of people do that.
Yep.
Is they really sell themselves short because they've been trained like dogs to a bell to think that I get the money, and the money I need to get a home. I need to get a mortgage, which is a death pledge, to and yeah, like, don't pay your property tax. See who really owns your land, you know? And people get stuck in this mentality, and they want to get in a new truck, that big truck with all the bells and whistles, and then that's like a mini mortgage.
Yep.
And it just keeps compounding, and there's no financial literacy. And you know what's crazy is I talk to people about this, and this is probably a good question to ask. Like, how do you finance a business? What's your first intuition?
Well, there's no one answer. The thing I will say is that bootstrap businesses, although very hard, have a much higher success rate.
Define bootstrap.
Self-funded.
Okay.
So amongst the group of founders, the early resources come from that group.
Mm-hmm.
Control is everything in a business when it comes to investment. There's numerous horror stories amongst my friends of people that gave control away. Hey, it'll be fine. We're all friends. Never, ever is. Everything costs more, and so you're going to have to give up more than you plan, even if you plan for it. And so that always causes problems. Funding businesses is pretty much the devil's work in the sense that it's the number one thing that is going to destroy your chances of success. And so the way I try and fund it, to answer the question directly, is to focus really, really niche, really, really small. I focus on the skill set that I have that can provide value right away, and then build communities around that as quickly as possible. And so you're proving it out. And once the early stage proving process is taken care of, then it's much easier to assess what kind of resources I really need based on speed and competency. And then if money is required at that point, it's much easier to figure out what kind. If you're going to do debt, so you're going to take on all the risk, never ever bet your house. That's one rule I hope that everyone lives by. Or if you're going to ask other people, and if so, trying to vet those people out, and to help them with their job. Investors aren't evil, but they are risk mitigators. And so the more that you can do for them early on, the better terms you'll get and the higher chances of success you'll have.
I liked how your first intuition was don't go into debt.
Yeah, it's
bootstrapping.
Debt is, again, it's all about risk.
Mm-hmm.
Everything comes down to risk in terms of that. And so you got to be really calculated with your risk. And so, hey, I really like this idea. I don't have any customers or a product. I'm going to mortgage my house and start paying a developer to create it.
Mm-hmm. Pretty
far on one side. If you have a product that is running, you've got 200-300 customers that just vehemently they're evangelists is the word I would use. They're evangelists for your product, and it is core to some aspect of their life. Ideally their business, but it could be on their joy category as well. But it's core in there, and that it would really pain them to give that up. Then taking out some debt might be exactly the right thing to do. So, it all comes down to risk mitigation.
Yeah. And it's a unique thing that I ask people who start up businesses, because I ask them all this time, because all sorts of walks of life, and I try to get that initial intuition out of them. Like, a lot of them, it's going to debt. A lot of them, they think it takes money to make money, which is kind of true to an extent. And they also, they have these preconceived notions that it takes a lot of money to make a lot of money. And my thought is, it takes human energy to make money.
Yeah. Most of the things that you threw out there are bromides that people tell themselves to kind of... bromides are like excuses. They're like excuses cool. For
new
why...
word. Bromide.
Oh, I stole it from Michael Saylor. He uses it all the time. They're excuses.
Okay.
I can't do this because it takes money to make money. I don't have money, therefore I can't do it. What makes money is value add with, super important with, expectation of payment. So, if I create an online form service, that's a ton of value, but no user on there would pay $1 for it, I haven't actually done anything useful. Like there's no expectation of payment on that. But if I'm cooking for you and I give you some brisket, you would like be forcing to give me money if you liked it, right? Like you would be like, why is this guy giving this like that? That's an expectation of payment that is like, it would be weird. It'd be weird to not pay for. And so people need to assess and understand what their client's mindset is with the product that they're creating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. It's business is a value adding proposition. If you're not adding value, you're not gonna get that. And you alluded to you want to build a following around the product to prove that it's good. So
it's everything. I've been researching game development lately. Not necessarily that that's an industry I want to get into, but it's an interesting industry in the sense that like no one needs a video game, yet it's a huge industry. It's extremely competitive, which means the winners have really tapped into some core ideals about business. And it's funny to listen to game creators that will talk about, we had these awful development cycles, we had all these bugs, and every time I had these bugs, I'd talk to my community, and they would bitch at me and they were super pissed. And then we would work through these different things and have our release, and somehow they were okay with it. And the whole time when they're talking about their success story, it never occurred to them that the only reason why they had success is because of that group that they managed to build. And that's literally it. Like your customers, like you should be sucking their dick at every chance you get. Like they are the only reason that the lights are on. And so anything that you can do to let them know how much they mean to you, to help them, that's what you have to be doing. And so that's what, it's always so weird to me when people say they hate customer service. It's like, what else are we doing? Like what else is there? Like that is all business is customer service.
Mm-hmm. Product or service. Yeah. You talked about building that community. And so have you heard of Metcalfe's Law?
I haven't.
Okay. Metcalfe's Law. It's kind of trivial. It's one of those information systems. Anyway, Metcalfe's Law is a law like gravity. I explained it as your network is your net worth. But what it is, Graham Moorhead, when he was here, he was like, he nailed it verbatim. He's like, Metcalfe's Law is your network is the square of the number of nodes in the, like, yes, you nailed it, Graham, you nailed it. But yes. So, for example, if you only know 5 people, your network is 25, right? So each person exponentiates your net worth because these people add to many, many digital assets as well that people don't realize. So, so can you elaborate more on that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously true, right? Who could argue against that? I guess the only thing I would say to it is there's many, many type of relationships that you can have within your network. And so understanding what those relationships are, being a little bit prudent about guiding those into an area that's beneficial for everyone. You don't want to be like gross. Like don't be friends with people that you're just trying to get some out of. That's not going to get anyone anywhere. But, and really to test them. So I was incredibly shy all growing up. And even until I was like in my early 30s, very, very shy. I'd be open one-on-one. But into groups of people, especially like people I didn't know, I really didn't have that learned skill of small talk, how to, make people feel like it's safe for them to be open and that I'm going to accept them and that we're going to have fun talking together and all that. And, a lot of people just show up and just ask each other questions. It's the most boring, terrible exchange in the world. But in doing that, you really learn that you'll have some relationships that appear on the surface to be very supportive, positive, great networks. Hey, if I reach out to this guy, he's going to be able to do this, that. You got to kind of test it a little so that you really understand what it is. I mean, I think that the equation that's thrown out there is true, but really defining what is counted as a node within that network is probably a little fuzzy, and I think that there's layers that people don't think about there. I have people that I would definitely call friends. What they are is acquaintances, but we're way outside. We're in completely different social networks with each other. But I test. I reach out once or twice a year and just see how they're going and see how things are doing, and I'll bounce a request off them. So I'm not like, hey, give me this thing, but I'll fish a little bit. They're like, hey, I'm working in this area and I'm struggling here, and then just listen. What do they say? Oh, that sucks. Okay, that node has no interest in helping you there. That's okay. But maybe if they want to talk more about it, you can see. So there's it's just being human. It's just being like a good friend. Again, being the type of person that you would want in your life to work with. And yeah, absolutely. Your network is everything. And I guess the last thing I would leave, you always say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Yeah. Not totally true. I mean, true in the spirit, but it's not what you know, it's who knows and likes you is what it really is.
Yeah, man, that's true. Yeah, the friendships, they're important to foster and maintain. And that brings up another good question. And you had a good explanation for it when you said influence, though. But what is a leader to you?
Oh, man. A leader is somebody who selflessly takes on more responsibility so the group can be more effective. The leader is the person that takes on a more difficult position. They're self-sacrificing. They do an enormous amount of leading by example. They're very, very clear on their expectations of people, and it needs to be an open conversation. The open conversation could be that you can't be in the group that I'm leading if you're not doing this. It could be, this is what I want. Is everyone okay with it? It depends on what you're getting done. They're effective communicators. They always give credit to their team. They never take credit for themselves. They praise people in public and they punish people in private. They are always the first champion for their team until a team member is no longer effective and they don't have any other way that they know of how to help that person be effective, and then they have to be the axe man to fire them. They're hopefully the person that the team respects the most.
That's really well thought out. You've really thought about this question because I guarantee you've had to apply it many times and throughout your experience.
Yep.
Man, that's good. Oh, also, if at any time you got to use the bathroom,
let me know. I'm dialed.
And I'll pause.
I put a catheter in before we started, so
oh, okay.
I'm kidding.
Perfect. Yeah, no, we do bathroom breaks all the time. Anyway, so talk a little bit more about your current startup.
Yeah. So my current startup, CTO at Drip 7, and so we're a micro learning platform for corporate micro learning. Sounds kind of boring, but what we found in the market is that nobody likes their corporate training. Everyone just complains about it, and so we're trying to and actually effectively implementing gaming techniques to make it more fun, more engaging, and more effective. And so what we found, this was not my intuition going into it, but what we found is that the biggest marker of success is engagement. It's not actually answering the questions right or wrong. And I think it's really interesting in terms of just education in general that the engagement is the most important thing. And so I think it can probably go into a bunch of different areas, but so that's my day job. Have a lot of fun there. We have a cool team, and we're making good strides. One of the other side projects, so I do a lot of moonlighting, so I'm constantly spinning up different things. It's good and bad. But one of the other one is a legislation project, and so we're using artificial intelligence to take legislation, load it into a very large context window, and then create a natural language search based on semantics versus syntax. So syntax is the actual words I know you know, but syntax is the actual words in the sentence, and semantics is the meaning of the sentence. And so all the technology that existed up until roughly a year ago in the public sphere was syntax-based searching. And so we're implementing a semantics-based searching system. And so what we do is that we'll take party platforms. So you could take like a Republican or Democrat party platform. You could take all the assertions that they make about what they stand for and break those into questions of, does this legislation support, and then whatever the platform piece is. And then you run those questions through all the legislation and get that output. And then you can rate whether or not pieces of legislation are in favor or against any given platform. And so that's really exciting. We're talking with different legislators. There's a lot of new technology that goes into making all that work. And my end goal with that project is to initially help. Well, back up for a moment. So the thing I found talking to legislators is that most of them are actually really good people. They're trying to do good things. They really don't have bad ulterior motives. But the amount of information that is being presented to them is impossible to consume. And so a lot of it, they're just kind of like running it through, and it's like a death by 1,000 cuts. You know, there's one or two bad lines in there that will give an edge to a corporation, to an individual, to a different group, whatever it may be. And so they're missing that stuff, and those compound and create an enormous amount of corporate corruption in the system. And so the first step is just to give them a tool so they can be better representatives. The next step is to take that same concept into the economic side of government. So start looking into budgets, getting fine-tooth analysis on where all the money is actually going, and then creating a public system that's consumable so that anyone can look and see, down to a pen being bought or paper being bought, all the way up the chain of where all this money is going in the budgets. And then the next phase after that would be to get it in the hands of individual citizens with a two-way communication, and start to toy around with the idea of restructuring our democracy. And so I'm actually super against democracy, so this last part might actually be worse.
Well,
but
you said you're a capitalist. A true democracy is horrible.
Yeah. Democracies always end in destruction.
Yeah.
People are easy to sway.
Yeah.
But I guess I look
We're
at
a republic, not a democracy.
right, and I'm all about a republic. And so we're giving, with this tool, you're very much giving more power to the democracy side and less power from the representative side, which I hope is the problem. What I want it to be is to end it's more of a republic in doing this, is my hope. But my analogy I have for government is that it's like a football game. So, you got all the fans, that's us. You got the players on the field, and you got the referees down there. You can add in a couple other to make the analogy work for you. But basically speaking, if the refs and the players aren't playing by the agreed upon rules, that the crowd rushes the field and murders them. A little harsh. It'd be nice if there was a middle ground in there where when people are upset, they don't have to show up to city councils and threaten people, that we could have more transparency into what's going on and have the crowd have more power to influence it when the rules are being broken early on, and hopefully create a better conversation between the two.
That's badass.
I hope. We'll see how it turns out.
Wow. Okay. So that's a lot to process, and my wheels were spinning there. So you are liaising with legislators, policymakers, and you're compiling a corpus of text based off of legislation, and then you're running it through a recurrent neural network.
Yep. Yeah, it's all natural language processing, and so there's a couple different technologies. So there's a latent embedded vector space that we first run it all through, and so we basically compile the semantics of the documents down into this multi-thousand dimensional array. So think of it in terms of 3D is the easiest way to think of it. And so let's say that every concept that would exist inside any given document can be compiled down to a discrete location in three-dimensional space. So if you talk about cheeseburgers, there's a XYZ location that has to do with cheeseburgers. And then if you talk about airplanes, there's a different XYZ location that has to do with airplanes. And so you compile this point cloud of concepts that are represented inside of these documents. Once you have that, then you can create your own concepts, whatever you want, and that will give you another location, and then you can do just simple distance calculations to see what overlaps. Now you've found sections inside of documents that has to do with the concepts that you're interested in. Now you can take those, split them apart, load them into an LLM transformer, and now you can do natural language processing on the actual text of these concepts and start to ask questions against it, and you can get answers out of does not apply, heavily in favor of, heavily against. And so with this basic technology, you can run any amount of text through it. So you can run entire state legal codes through it, entire legislative sessions, all that, and start to programmatically ask it these questions and rate where all this stuff follows. And so now with that tool, you can simplify it down to a user's perspective and say, hey, what are the things you care about? I care about abortion. I care about gun rights, whatever it is. So you can create a persona of your most ideal representation, and then we can graphically represent that. And so then we take that graphical representation and we overlay it onto the pre-compiled text and concepts and all that. And the final result is that we can give you a mathematical representation visually of how well a representative represents you, how well a government represents you, any of these types of things. And so now you have very, very simple questions asked that creates a visual representation that people can see if they're being effectively, I need to stop saying representation, I need a new word. They can see if they're, if the government is working in their best interest, and then we can provide a two-way system to communicate their, their happiness that it's working well or their disdain that it's not working well.
Stop using hashtags.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And this is
Let's hear this. This is interesting.
Okay, good. You should not use hashtags because when all LSTM, all models, one, because it doesn't match search intent. When you go to the search bar and you type in something, what it's doing is it's taking all the words, and you said it, it's reducing it to a single vector. But during this process, during the tokenization process, it is removing all common stop words and characters to include hashtags. And I got the Python code. I have proven this definitively. I've done a bunch of YouTube videos on this. To include hashtags, and it moves all the words, right aligns them to one side, and adds padding. Add padded zeros all the way to the end of the vector space. So it will all go into the first embedding layer. Right. Therefore, hashtags don't match search intent. And I have done plenty of data mining studies on this. I did this one with Instagram data, millions of rows. You're better off using 0 hashtags than 1 or 2. So here's the thing. Here's the history of hashtags. It came from the people who, it came from Twitter programmers who were programming in Python. And it was a social experiment to try to get people to search engine optimize with their own content. Because most people just drop a photo or a link in with no context at all. And a lot of these search engines can't see photos.
Sure.
I mean, some are good at it, but there's no great context to it. So they started saying, hey, everybody, you should leave a thing. And they start using the hashtag for the comments, right? Like these nerdy dudes are just leaving the comments to try to get people to train them, like, oh, put the comment, oh, yeah, Spokane or whatever. But the thing is, each hashtag you add reduces the probability that it's going to trend because it doesn't meet search intent unless you had the subscriber base to begin with. I mean, there's a lot of them that they throw a bunch of hashtags in, but they had a shit ton of subscribers to begin with.
Sure.
But you'll see it, like when you go to the search bar, like you don't go like let's say running a marathon, you don't go type marathon hashtag Spokane marathon CDA marathon life marathon blah blah. Nobody types that. You type in, when is the next marathon in Spokane?
Yep.
That's meeting search intent. So most people aren't meeting search intent to begin with. Adding more hashtags doesn't meet search intent because when it goes to tokenize these semantic phrases, man's best friend is the. If it goes hashtags man best friend is, there's no tokenize like dog life, dog park life. That specific token phrase is not going to be there.
Yeah.
And it's not going to meet search intent. And I have plenty of data to prove that this is just a social experiment that's gone awry. And I've been a big proponent against hashtags. And so that's something you can think about.
Yeah, I love it. I think you're spot on. I think it has everything to do with it's a technological limitation that we used to have, and it was a quick and easy fix for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes sense. We're kind of in this phase. So this all tie in. Microsoft having the market dominance that they had early on really stunted computer growth for a long time. If you look at like in the mid 90s to early to even like 2010, there really wasn't any innovation that happened. It wasn't until Apple really got OS X working well and had a suite of software that would really work that we started to see a lot of changes. And really, I think you can make the case pretty effectively that a lot of the changes came from when the mobile market came about, that big companies create stagnation. And so within social media, Twitter, Facebook, all these, there's an enormous, Instagram, there's a lot of stagnation. Mm-hmm. TikTok came around and it reduced the latency time between your next dopamine hit. Mm-hmm. But, we've had Vines, it's a tiny, tiny change on something that has been there. And so I say all that to agree with you about the hashtags, that there is stagnation. And, my hope, I don't know that first of all, the only thing that people will ever choose is convenience. Mm-hmm. People will give up their privacy, their rights, everything for convenience. Oh, yeah. Everything. And we've seen this time and time again. So with that lens, I don't know how you could actually get people over to a different model, but a much more effective model would be that you have, all these things. You have an AI that you've trained that has all of your text, email, everything. It knows everything about you. It's you. It's your personal assistant. It runs for you, by you. It's either hosted by a service that you pay for or locally, whatever it may be. And that it has basically flipping the model around. So instead of having a corporation very centralized that has their own AI model they created for you primarily for advertisement and engagement purposes, and then they also hold the data, that you flip the model upside down so that all the data is endpoints of possible areas that you could go visit. Instead of you going to like Facebook or Twitter, or Instagram to get data from them, your client goes out to many different data emitters. And then the AI that you have is your personal feed, and that it is compiling all this and then presenting a client-driven interface that is, pleasant, easy to use, fast, extremely convenient. And the reason why that model would be so much better is that then the incentive model for advertisers changes a lot. The model for the whole service moves away from addictive attention behavior, getting to something that's user driven. So it could be, I want news, I want it to be entertained right now, I want this, that, and the other thing. And if the model was flipped upside down like that, you could choose different algorithms to serve different needs. So like if I go onto Instagram, it's just going to serve whatever the Instagram, algorithm thinks I should have. But, maybe right now I want to know things about Israel. I want to know things about Ukraine. Maybe I'm really interested in a technological topic. I could tell an algorithm that type of thing and then have a purpose-built algorithm do that for me. And so it would be much healthier for everyone. The other thing that would open the door to is right now, the other aspect all these platforms have is that they're also a marketing advertising agency. That's how they keep the lights on, right? They're selling their audience's attention for clicks. Well, the content creators still need to be paid. So you could have a system where a content creator is like, hey, I need 1 penny per view or 10 cents per view. Or if it's a movie, I need $1, whatever. I don't know. It could change based on the content creator's wishes. And the way they get that, it could be either you pay them, or it could be that you have selected advertising agencies that you like, and that when you're on their content consuming it, those advertising agencies that you've selected are going to serve content to you in with your pleasure content and then pay these other groups. And so then your groups, they don't care who you pick. They just care that either you're paying them or you have picked one of them. And so now you have a model that's much more open, and it's, encourages positive market trends.
Yep.
I don't know that we'll ever get there though. Like that's kind of, to me, that's one of the big promises of what crypto could do. Like the crypto computing paradigm, not any of the chains with the exception of Bitcoin that exist. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of the hope when I first heard about it. And we still haven't realized any of that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You touched on a good point, and that was, how do we get tailored content to people, and what is it that the audience responds to the most? And I thought about Amazon and how, isn't it just strange how like you could go to checkout somewhere online and then an Amazon ad pops up for the exact same product? Just click right there. Just go ahead. Like, that should be illegal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey,
they're good at it.
They're good at it, right? And a lot of people hate Amazon for different reasons. And like, yeah, sure, their business practices are not consumer friendly, and they're monopolistic. Mm-hmm. But I also recognize that I really like aspects of them. Mm-hmm. Like I get a consistent buying experience. Mm-hmm. I have guarantees around the quality of it, and I know that if there's some issue with the product, I clearly understand the way that they are going to treat me with that. And I don't have that same experience if I go to other places.
Yeah. No, I feel that they're onto something that I would like to see develop, which is getting people's data. So are you aware of market basket analysis? Okay, so MBA is a machine learning model that compares if you and it's a little bit older. It's around I don't know. As a statistical formula, it's been around since at least the 60s or 70s. But MBA is, and these models you can do locally and are more powerful than what the transformers are pulling out, because it's not the same algorithm. It's a different thing. It's based on the a priori. So like if somebody buys milk and bread, they're more likely to buy eggs. So it's based on these things called lift and association in the a priori theory, that something came before the other. But those are powerful things. So if you can compile, and you can, user purchasing data from many different sources, because this is something people don't understand. It's like their purchasing data is not private. That's public. Like,
Not at
you
all,
don't
no.
have, I don't, like, when I go to buy groceries, I have an expectation that everything I do is in public. In fact, I'm probably on film. I'm probably being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And so none of your purchasing behavior is private. So you can compile this data and then run. Also, if you could compile that data and then run sentiment analysis to find out, to send them targeted ads at the right time when they're feeling the most at a certain buying time for that specific product, and send them everywhere they go, targeted ads on the Internet of Things. That is kind of cool. I think that would be something that would be awesome. But
I mean, isn't that what Amazon is doing?
yeah, basically they're good at
Facebook and Google.
They're good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've
And they have
heard
that
stories like
database.
people found out their teenage daughter was pregnant because
Yes.
and it wasn't anything that they searched. It's just their searching behavior had changed in such a way that, yeah, I mean, this is where I still, there's two big killers in society. One is centralization of power, and the other is believing that you know better. So, if anyone is like, am I the bad guy or they the bad guy? It's the act of believing you know better, no matter what the subject is, makes you the bad guy. That's it.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's
And,
a really
and so
good
and so with that, in order for society to have long-term success, Amazon will kill us if we allow it to. It will destroy our society if we allow it to. We need to have decentralized businesses and offerings, but you can't have not in today's market, you can't have a decentralized user experience anymore. And so the only way that corporations could fight it, mom and pop shops, grocery stores, all this, is if they could get into a decentralized co-op that guaranteed user experience from end to end, then and offered a faster delivery, which you could, offered lower taxes, which you could by doing city coins and different things. I'll talk about that tax stuff in a second, but if the local community bound together, you had an established contract where the user knew what happens with returns, pricing, that shipping was faster, and the overall cost was lower because of a different tax structure, then you could create a system that nobody owns, that everyone gets to participate in, that could defeat Amazon at their own game.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I wonder where the competitive space is going. I think it's really fun and exciting to watch it. And we'll see where it goes. I know how Walmart's responding. Walmart is responding by paying its truckers more, by just trying to own the logistics.
Okay.
And that's something, that Walmart is a massive logistics system. It's a massive truck stop with stores.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about. Oh, here's a question I was going to ask. How do I get a transformer?
Like, how do you make one?
Buy one.
Well, I wouldn't.
Get one.
So what I think so this is an analogy I use a lot. Comparing artificial intelligence to a built house. So, or just products, let's say products in general to a built house. So there's many aspects of it. There's the group that shows up, takes raw material, cuts it to shape, nails it together, builds the structure. There's the group that paints it. There's the group that sells it. And then there's also the group that physically makes the wood and the nails. And so if you're talking about creating your own transformer, you're talking about being the group that makes the wood and nails. That's not where I would suggest that anyone start. The spot that you'd want to start is like the sheetrocking painting kind of level, maybe the framing where you're like creating the structure and building something out. But that's like so far down the road that off-the-shelf tools won't be able to do what you want, that you're going to spend a lot of time that could be spent better elsewhere.
Yeah.
So if it's out of boredom, Hugging Face, I mean, if you want to start diving into stuff, Hugging Face is where you can find a lot of off-the-shelf ones. If you want to build your own, start with a data set. PyTorch has built-in tools. read a lot of tutorials. You can get started that way.
Yeah. That's something that I've thought about. I'm like, okay, how do you build a transformer? Because I saw this. I was reading this news article. It was in the last AI news thing that I did, which was IBM came out with this North Pole card. It's essentially a video card, right? I don't know how much it is, but it's a video card with a pre-programmed neural net on it. And I guess you just plug it in. And then I think, okay, all right, what if I was to make, because, well, you've already done it. So this is what I'm asking. How much hardware is your image generator running on?
Yeah. So 3090, NVIDIA 3090 is a great card. That's kind of like the beautiful inflection point of having enough video RAM, which is what these things need to run, and speed that you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. But it's really underpowered if you're doing a lot of heavy training. So if you're doing like toy sandbox kind of networks, it's good. I mean, the truth is, conceptually I understand how to do it, and I've gone through the process of building them, but that's not where I spend any of my time. And even in a professional capacity, if I got to the point where I needed to like make the wood and nails, to use that analogy again, I'd find someone else that's their focus and pay them to do it. It's a black art thing, and so I think it's important to understand what's going on under the hood, but I would stop there unless you want to make that your career.
Yeah, for sure. I just think like, so you got this NVIDIA, and this is running off of one computer.
Yeah.
And this one computer, like, how easy is it to crash it if like 500 people want to go on at the same time?
They won't crash it. They'll get a stupid long queue time on it. Yeah. So they've got a queuing system in there. So eventually it would crash. You get 1 million requests. Yeah, it's going to run out of RAM on the thing. But basically speaking, it won't request. It's just the latency will drop to like 0, because it can only process one request at a time with these things. And so it just queues up. So you may have you could have up to like a 20-minute wait time if you had too many users on it.
Okay. All right. So if you wanted to take your thing to the next level, you would need like 2 computers with the NVIDIAs. So as far as scaling out,
so again, I wouldn't I'm a computer nerd and I like building computers. That's why I did it. I've got like 6 different websites that I run, just most of them for fun, for testing things. So it's a good use for me. Joe Blow off the street, this is not what I would do. I would find like Hugging Face has like hosting options. You can do like Google Compute, you could do like Amazon, but I would do an online compute service where you're renting your GPU power and then run things off it that way. As far as what I'm doing, so 3090 is like a great start. Like I said, this computer, a typical computer, can handle 3 graphics cards at a time. And so you're going to be on a pretty high-end power supply. At that, once you try and go higher, each one pulls around 350 watts. So you got 3 of them. You're over a kilowatt that you're pulling. Power supplies, the highest end ones are around 1600. Your wall is going to push somewhere around 2 kilowatts at the absolute max. So you're pretty well maxing out what you can do at home with like 3 to 4 of these things. And so long term, basically, like, I don't even think the answer matters. The correct answer is like try it on something small, expand it a tiny bit, and then if it continues to grow past that, that's great news. Now you need to start talking with people that are professional infrastructure builders and figure out how you're going to host it long term and not break the bank.
Yeah.
So, this touches on something, another thing that I've sketched out, which I don't know how to actually implement this, but it's as a developer, it's a pain point that I have, which means I'm probably not the only one. So Midjourney, OpenAI, those are kind of like the 2 biggest ones that everyone's sort of heard of, right? Making images.
Yeah, Stable Diffusion.
Yeah, sure.
I got to plug Genmo too.
Yeah, totally, right? Yeah, Claude, all these are. So each one of these is costing you somewhere in the neighborhood of like $20 a month, roughly speaking. Cool. They offer a lot of utility. Now, if I'm a more niche AI developer, I'm not going to be charging you $20 a month unless I'm like really scratching an itch you have, but probably I'm not. And me being able to charge you even $1 or $2 a month, probably outside of my realm of possibility to do. Maybe I could, but most people don't want more services. So what am I going to do? I've got costs associated with this. Every single token, I'm paying for it. It's small, but your tokens are like 1,000th of a penny. So you get 1,000 users together. You can easily start racking up hundreds or thousands of dollars a month, even tens of thousands of dollars a month if you really got a good system going. Or I'll try and run my own. Private homes, you're going to run out of power real fast. You can only maybe get like 20 concurrent users in your house before you're going to be like impossible to keep growing there, 30 at the most. It's not a lot. So then you start looking into hosting solutions. You're dropping somewhere in the neighborhood of like $600 to $1,000 a month per GPU dedicated inside of a server rack somewhere. That's going to add up real fast. So what do? Well, you create a proof of concepts and people like it, and then it can't go anywhere because your monetization model fails. And so this is where, to deal with this problem, there's two things that are going to have to happen. One of the two things. One, these models are going to have to get I guess three things. They're going to have to get massively more efficient so they can run on people's local hardware they already have, phones. Two, the hardware is going to have to get way quicker. So we're going to have to just get phones that are just way, way faster than they currently are. Or three, you're going to have to start paying for a computation service the same way you pay for your internet connection. So Netflix doesn't pay for anyone's internet connection. The expectation of payment for the user is that I pay for my internet connection. Well, with these big models, you may have to start paying $20, $30 a month to have computation space rented. And then when you use one of these smaller services, it's not a $20 a month service, that you give them your public key access code so that they can take the request to service you and run those on compute centers that you're paying and then give the result back to you that way. That would also solve the solution. And one of those things has to happen, or we're going to have a huge monopoly with AI where it's just big corporations or wildly successful projects are the only ones people actually have access to, which is a real bummer of a future. So,
yeah, no, you're right. And I think about Elon Musk's first principles analysis, and it really brings up everything you said with this new chip that IBM created, this new card that it bypasses the external memory problem, that bottleneck. It's called the von Neumann bottleneck, because it has the North Pole is made of 256 computing units or cores, each contains its own memory. So you're mitigating the von Neumann bottleneck. It runs. It's way more energy efficient and way more computationally efficient as well. So maybe something like this would be, if you were to slap that in your computer.
Yeah.
Versus paying for computation space, maybe the competition will come down to somebody inventing better hardware for you to do it. But so Llama 2. I know you're excited about that one.
Yeah.
Llama 2. How much do you know about the NVIDIA Alpha 100? So, well, I'll just tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the $36,000 each, right? Llama 2 is running on like thousands of them. Mm-hmm. They got a massive server farm just to be able to service everybody. I wonder how much one NVIDIA Alpha 100 server could serve.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that the token information is online.
Yeah. That's something
I'll go look
about.
It up.
Yeah, you're right. I'm thinking more of like the hammer and nail, the wood and nails.
Yeah.
Instead of like, Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking in terms of how do I get the data? How do I clean the data? How do I get? Well, okay, it depends on what model you're thinking about. If you're thinking in terms of like your images, so how many images did you take to get your image generator where it is now?
Yeah, so zero.
Zero. Okay.
Zero. Like I said, I operate. I don't think it's right to operate at the low levels. I think you're a hobbyist. Well, okay, if you want to be a hobbyist, it's right. Mm-hmm. My goal is to service people, and so the way that you do that is that you spend as little resources as possible to create things that they can actually use, and then let them use it and see if they like it. Or you have a business that you own or work in that there's a very obvious pain point that you know how to solve, and then you can go solve it. Yeah, so with this off-the-shelf Stable Diffusion, I used a pre-built checkpoint by somebody else. I basically built you're talking about the inked AI concept I made. Yeah.
Which is cool because you're able to draw.
Yeah.
It makes that.
So what I want to do, everyone has seen at this point and used for the most part text-to-image systems. And so my wife is a fantastic artist, and so I wanted to create something that helped artists still express themselves physically with their art, but then take that into the AI realm. And so to do that, I created a Stable Diffusion pipeline, wrapped a bunch of network stack stuff around it, and then used control nets built into it, and then create an imaging processing pipeline to feed into those and combine that with the text, and then create the outputs rendered back to the user, and then just threw as simple as an AI as I could create on it. And an interesting thing, I was with family and friends over the weekend, and they have a 3 and 5 year old. And so we threw it across the table to those kids, and man, they just had a ball with it. They spent like 15, 20 minutes laughing and giggling and drawing stick figures and swords and watching it and all that. And that's a really good test for how simple your AI is can you give it to a child and have them enjoy it?
True. If it's not simple, have you noticed that technology trains the user?
Yeah, it has to, right? Or else you don't use it. So, I mean, this is it really touches on an interesting paradigm shift I think we're really, really close to that I don't hear people talking about much. So, classic competitor story, Facebook versus MySpace. Yeah. We all know how it turned out. One of the big issues, well, first of all, MySpace should have won. They already had the user base, all these things. A few marketing factors in there, but one of the biggest factors was that the user experience on MySpace changed between each page that you went to. And so this really goes against addictive behavior studies of the Skinner box. So what makes humans, what's the most addictive thing to any animal, humans included, is that you have a consistent delivery of a variable reward. And so with Facebook, the interface, the colors, all that, always the same. Image sizes, always the same. What's variable in there is what image you're going to get next, what text you're going to get next, are you going to get likes, all these kinds of things. Whereas MySpace, there was no consistency between it. And I think that is a huge reason why it failed. So why do I bring that up? Websites they're like, it's so ingrained in our mindset about the internet that we don't even think about if they're antiquated or not. But websites are the epitome of a MySpace versus Facebook type of interaction. Every single website is different. Every app is different. Every user interface, you have to learn them, all this. And so it trains the user, but that's not what users want. Like, users are willing to be trained once or twice, but then the most convenient thing is that you can keep the interface consistent so I can optimize how well I use it, and then you give me variable rewards on top of it. And so I think what we're very quickly going towards is that you're going to be communicating with an artificial intelligence through an interface. It's not going to say text for long. Like, nobody likes text. I know it's like convenient and simple to get started, but like only computer programmers use the terminal. The average person doesn't. And so we're going to have artificial intelligences that dynamically generate interfaces, and that those interfaces will have to be consistent. And then the data that they show us inside will be variable. And when that happens effectively, websites as we know it are going to completely go out of style. And it's going to become something that's like a very boomer-esque sort of thing that, if you're an old person, you still go to a website, but any younger person, Zoomer, is going to be on their AI talking to it to get the information that they want.
Yeah, and that brings up another good point. How much of your thinking are you willing to give up to a machine?
Let me ask you this. How often do you lay in bed doing basic arithmetic in your head?
Never.
So I'm weird, and I do that. I'll pick two big random numbers, and I'll add them together and multiply them together in my head.
Well, that's awesome.
Most people don't do that, right?
Yeah.
So most people are going to give up all of their thinking.
Yes, which is nuts. And at what point are you then just a sentient biological actor for a machine?
Well, I mean, we're getting pretty metaphysical, which I like. The act of experiencing a feeling makes it real. And the fact that we experience anything means that we exist at the absolute minimum at a level that is completely outside of any known physics that we have as a society. So, whether or not our biologically developed neocortex continues to do the thinking for us, or a much faster, more effective hardware system does the thinking for us, the part of us that feels and experiences is still going to continue feeling and experiencing, unless we kill everybody. But I don't know how much I care. Like I am frustrated with my mind's inability to, continue working past when it's tired. I make mental mistakes. I misremember things, all this stuff. I'm not so tied to my brain's ability to think that I wouldn't be willing to entertain using one that thinks better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just think about where would I go if I didn't have Google Maps.
So this is something where it is a skill and it's something I very actively practice. It pisses my wife off, but I still look up routes and purposely not drive with the phone on, just to force myself to do this, because I want that skill for racing and hiking. Most people don't do that. So, and this isn't like me being like, look at me, I'm better.
No, I'm actually unique human. Good for you.
Well, some people bench over 200 pounds. I don't. It's like that is a skill that matters to them, so they maintain it. There are some people that will maintain the skill that we talk about, but most people will again choose convenience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's cool. No, you're a very fascinating person. I mean, think about what you've done and up to this point. You don't look at. That's the way a lot of high functioning, fascinating people act. And like CEOs of businesses, they'll tell you all about their workout routine.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things that these people have in common. And one thing I've noticed about people and seeing them wholesale is there's three pillars that really build confidence in a person. That is, teach a person how to speak. So how to articulate their higher being. Teach them how to fight, and teach them how to dance, because dancing is a social grace. And when you can teach somebody those 3 skills, they become very, very confident in to handle themselves in many different things.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Contingent on that they're still, working out and getting after it.
Yeah, but it'd be hard to effectively do the things you named and not have all that other stuff in line.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I've noticed that, like, with our society, we live in a society where mediocrity and conflict avoidance, it's the standard, it's rewarded. People don't want to leave their comfort zone and blossom where they're planted. They don't want to go and say, I'm going to put it on myself. I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to spend my energy to work to build something. While everybody else is just content with go to work, come home, watch Netflix, eat pizza, drink beer, rinse and repeat. Thank God it's Friday. Oh God, it's Monday.
Yeah, this is no way to live. I mean, it's the classic thing that most, I think especially men, I only focus on men's issue because I mean, I love my wife and but I don't understand a lot of what drives her a lot of times. But most men are living lives of quiet desperation.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah. Can you elaborate more on that? Like, what do you see?
Yeah. I mean, so this is where my friends and I have created there's 4 of us. Like I said, my ride or die homies kind of thing. I've known these guys since college. We do most fun things together. And a big part of we get together like every 4 to 6 weeks. And, we talk a lot about issues, meaning, all that. How do you find meaning in this world? I think a lot of people get hung up on legacy. I have no desire to build a legacy at all. I just when I'm gone, I don't care. I just want to enjoy and gather good experiences and do positive things while I'm here. I think a lot of people get bent out of shape there, but just every day that we go to bed, we're ending our endeavor for that day, for the momentum that we have created for what we're going to wake up into. So if I go to bed and I've been eating like crap and I'm unhealthy and all that, I'm going to wake up and have all these issues. And so I think it all really just comes down to being honest with what you need and want in this world, and really focusing on how you're creating that momentum for the next day.
Yeah, that's why people need jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and have you noticed, and I worry about the future of our nation with, like you said, people don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to, they just go up and ask random questions, but they don't know how to get to the heart of the matter of they don't know how to make friends. I think COVID made it worse, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, as far as our society, we're definitely, it's the old adage that strong men create easy times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. We're definitely in the creating hard times phase of it all right now, and that's okay. It's a cycle. It's okay.
Yeah. What's nuts is, realizing that you're growing up, and when you realize that you are the pinnacle of the world's generation right now, everybody else that's getting older, they're carrying less.
Yeah.
They're retiring. So it's up to you to step up and build and develop and, have something to live up to. And a lot of people find that out really late in life, and they go chasing all sorts of random dead ends.
Sure. Yeah. That's where the classic midlife crisis comes in. let me, because I guess the only thing I would say to end on that, or to wrap up my opinion on all that stuff, is just I think that people should have a really, really healthy relationship with the fact that we're all going to die. I think it's really important to think about things in terms. So, like my parents. My parents are older. My dad's 80. And I don't think about, how many years or whatever I've left. I think about like how many more interactions do I have with them? So I see them, once every other month, maybe, so you're talking 6-8 times a year. What are they going to live? Like maybe 5 years. So, I've got like 30 more dinners that I'm going to have ever with them. And I think about that. So it's like I get done. I'm like, okay, 28 left, 27 left. And so I don't think people, we know conceptually that we're finite, but we don't act as if we believe it.
Yeah. So on finiteness, what do you think? Well, what countries do you want to go see before you die?
All of them. I don't know. I've been to almost every continent now. Australia I haven't been to. I've hit Africa. So Australia and Africa are the only two I haven't been to. I've been most of the places I really want to go. Europe is the big one. Like America is a great place to make money. Europe is a great place to spend it. So I want to go check that out. But honestly, I care less about that. I've got some racing events and things I really want to still do. Like Isle of Man TT race. Have you ever seen those guys? Oh, bro. Google that when you get a chance. So Isle of Man is this little island off of the UK, Britain. And they host every year the most dangerous motorsport event in the world. It's like on average, like 1.5 or 2 people die a year. It's bullet bikes. The loop is like 17 miles around the island, something like that. It's not far. And their average speed is north of 150 miles an hour through windy towns. They're inches away from stone walls. It is crazy. And so I really want to go do that. I think the Nürburgring is like a bucket list item everyone's got to go do. Those are the things that I care more about. Spending good time with my wife and going and seeing the typical sites. Yeah, I absolutely want to go do that. But the things for me, it's that stuff.
Do you want to see the race?
Yeah, I'm not going to go do it.
I wouldn't want you dying.
Yeah, I'll go pit or something for somebody.
Which would be cool. I mean, that would be a lot of energy. It looks like it's intense as shit, man. Like,
oh, dude, some of those videos.
You're just standing there.
Exactly.
Flying by. Dude, that's intense.
Yep.
Have you ever scuba dove?
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
Nice.
Enjoy it. It's fun. In fact, I think, we're trying to do a trip down to Belize in February.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I love scuba.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'm scuba certified, so
nice. You got your patties?
Patty. The last dive I did was free diving, but you should do it someday. It's $250, totally worth it. There is a nuclear missile silo in Royal City, Washington. All right, so go past George with the Gorge, right? Right before you hit George with the Gorge, there's this road called Adams Road, and you just follow it all the way to the end to where it hits the highway in Royal City. And if you just turn and look to the northwest, there'll be a red farmhouse, and that red farmhouse in that backyard is this massive Titan 1 nuclear missile silo complex. So Titan 1 is the smallest of the nuclear missile silos. There's Titan 3 is the biggest. But it is something else, man. There is an entire command center down there. That's the size of the kingdom before they blew the kingdom.
Yeah, I've been out. I had a hacker convention down there. I used to be a black hat hacker.
No shit.
Yeah, and so
dude.
Yeah, so we went to.
You gotta talk about that, dude. For sure.
Yeah, so we went to.
You're a freaking black hat hacker
for a little while. Yeah.
You fucking bad boy. Holy shit, you're straight criminal.
No. Kept okay. All pretty above board.
Thank you. This is badass. You just made this podcast 20 times better.
Oh, that's
ahead.
Funny. Yeah, we went to one called Torcon, and it was in a Titan 1 missile silo that they had a lot of the stuff. And I wonder if it's because it's about the same area. Is out past. God, it must have been right around in there.
Yeah.
Moses Lake. We're out past Moses Lake back in there. That's funny. I wonder. I might have been to this spot that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's probably the same spot. I think it's
Is it all graffitied inside?
It's all graffitied, full of pigeon shit.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they had the one dome that you could get like a 747 in there, and the wings wouldn't touch it. Yeah, I have. Yes.
Thank God. Okay, you know.
Yeah, this is incredible.
Yes. So that's the command center, and then there's a whole tunnel ways you can go, and then you get a whole tour with the dudes. But the company is called Undersea Adventures in Kennewick, Washington. You go pay them $250 or whatever their price is now, and they do it every weekend, even during the wintertime.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's a cold water dive, but unlike any other dive I've done, when you go down, it doesn't get any colder. It's the same temperature.
Oh, interesting.
And it is just pitch black. It is intense. It's the most technical dive I've ever done, but it's relatively safe, even though they say, confined spaces diving is the most dangerous diving, but it's really safe. It's basically a tank dive, especially when you get to the silo itself. So there's the 3 silos are flooded, and the silos look like how it looked when you were going down into that's all I-beams going down. That's what it looks like. So the missile was kept down below. Okay, let me digress. You go into the room, to the nuclear missile silo room, and it's all flooded, and you have to wade before you even get to it. You have to wade and pull in kayaks behind you with your gear on it, with some of your gear on it, through at least 300 meters of tunnel. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's gonna dogleg, and it's a hell of an experience, because you're going on you're walking on the tubes and all the piping and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
And so you're waiting on that, slowly pulling. Everybody's calling out obstacles and whatnot, and then you get to the first staging area where you have to put on all your stuff, put on your fins and goggles, and then go underneath. You had to dive underneath into the actual silo room, and then in the silo room, it basically looks like a giant water tank, and we went down. It took me forever to because my buoyancy sucks. I'm so buoyant. It takes 30 minutes for me just to finally start descending.
Oh, really?
But yeah, well, it feels like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went down. The farthest down we could go was 105 feet. I went down to 96 feet, because at 96 feet there's 2 blast doors that were ajar.
Okay.
So they're stuck there. So I'm kneeling on one of the blast doors, looking down below, and they said, you're not allowed to go down below that. They briefed this whole brief and everything. And of course, I had somebody there. I had a safety guy there with me the whole time. So basically, and it was cool because he took me through the machine room, because you got to go through the machine room.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for him, I would have totally died. There's no way I would have been able to have figured out where I was.
Sure. Do you have the rope that you're unwinding as you go? So it's not like spelunking. This guy knows where you're at.
Yeah, he just knows where we are. And so, but I mean, you wouldn't have found the room if you were by yourself. I mean, you could have gone, but he just took me through the room. Oh, this is crazy. And then down at 96 feet, I'm feeling drunk.
Yeah.
We did. But I looked up, and I had the brightest light there, because I used to free dive for lobster when I lived in SoCal. So the only time you can free dive for them is at night. And so I would have my flashlight, and I would go down, and find them. And so I'm hella afraid of sharks. So this thing is 1100 lumens. It's anti-shark. So it scares away most fish.
Yeah.
And so I'm down there in this nuclear missile silo. I'm looking up and down, and you can't even tell where your bubbles are going. It is so pitch black. It is the abyss, man. And the only thing that let me know I was physiologically going deeper was the pressure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but
kind of scary.
Dive.
I would do it, but I'd want to work my way up to that. That seems like a big undertaking.
Oh, it's not as bad as you think. It's more like a field trip.
Is it really?
It feels yeah, it's totally worth it.
Okay.
I'm a bitch. Trust me, I'm a bitch. I
true.
do not like anything related to cave diving. I would never do that. I'm way too
that's
much
crazy.
Of a bitch. No, this is really safe. It is safe. They haven't had any issues. So yeah, no, they've had no issues. They do it every weekend. It's basically a tank dive. You just jump into but it's really cool.
Yeah.
And there's asbestos everywhere.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's asbestos floating in the water like seaweed. But
yeah, right.
Well, cool. So talk about the places you've dove.
Man, I guess I spoke too freely. So I got certified in college.
Okay.
Did my open water and stuff. I haven't gone anywhere to do any diving. So all pool diving with the exception of my open water certification dive.
Yeah, but you want to go to Belize.
Yep. So cool. Belize in February. So I'll get my certification re-upped, and there's some cool stuff to check out there. But yeah, I don't want to paint the picture that I'm an experienced diver.
Oh, no. Yeah, for sure. I'm not even that much of an experienced diver. I'm just mostly well, I mean, dude, you're experiencing a lot of crazy shit that I wouldn't do, like flying down the road on a two-wheeled motorcycle, man. It's crazy. So what age were you when you first started? Yeah.
So yeah, 10 years old when I started. The Baja racing stuff, I was like 28, I think, when we were doing that. So
dang, man. So your parents, they're like, here you go, Luke, here's a little
my brother,
a little two-stroke or something.
Totally. Yeah. My brother is the bigger risk taker of the two. He's older than me. He's 11 years older than me, but he wanted to get into racing when we were young, and so when I was 11, that's what got the whole thing kicked off. He was in his early 20s, so we were just at the track every single weekend, racing, doing all that stuff. It was great. It's hyper dangerous. My boy is riding a bike now. He's 3, and I'm so torn. I definitely am not going to push him into it, but if he wants to go do it, I'll support it, because it really crafts who you are as a person, because the risk level is so high, and you have to, there's nerves, and it's a very physical sport. You don't think about it because you're on a dirt bike, but just physically pushing it around the track that fast, you're really working. The competitors are very physical. You're hitting each other. I mean, not like punching each other, but you're slamming your machine into each other and all this type of stuff, and you're fully exposed. So yeah, it's just the danger is really, really high with it. I mean, the rule of thumb with motocross is that you're going to have a major orthopedic surgery every 3 years when you're racing. That's what typically is going on.
Yeah, it's like way higher than jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu, you're pulling stuff, right? You're like tearing ligaments and all that.
You can always tap.
Yeah. It's the accidental rollover.
Yeah.
That's what always gets you in jiu-jitsu. It's rarely that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's for sure, dude. I did this terrain race up at Airway Heights on the motocross.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Incorporated that. And as soon as I ran on that thing, I'm like, oh, God, this is hard. This would not be soft to land on. This does not look like it would be soft to land on like on TV.
No, it can't be. It can't be. It would kick you around too much if it was real soft. So.
Yeah. Have you ever made your own tracks?
Yeah. So I grew up out of town, and so we had a friend that had a bulldozer, and so he came over and built a track for me in our backyard. And so that was really cool. We had like a set of whoops. There was a 70-foot triple in there, which I admittedly have only actually jumped the whole thing like 5 times. Dang. I just did the double, which was like 40 feet. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. There's a lot of good corners and, big berm corners, so you can get, almost horizontal going around the thing at speed. And
yeah, I bet that. So I bet there was that one day when you were a kid when you're like, I want to get air. And was that like the first thing that you're trying to go for?
Yeah, gosh. So that's the funny thing. I've the biggest jump I've never done over 100 feet. The biggest thing I've ever done is 95 feet, just barely shy, but I've never broke 100. The truth is most of the jumps that you're doing as an amateur are somewhere in the 30 to 60 range. That's kind of the sweet spot. When you start going further than that, it really, the end of the jump influences your trajectory so much, and you probably don't have the skill level to set the bike up, and you don't have a bike that is set up in a way that's safe to do that all the time. Your chance of injury goes way, way up. Like one of the worst crashes I've ever had, it almost killed me. In a race, doing real well in the race. The leader was checked out, but I was fighting for second. And it was one of those awesome races where it's like every corner, it's like we're trading spots back and forth, right? Just real clean race, and we're not hitting each other, but just pushing really, really hard. And it was the last lap, and we're coming up to a section where I was faster, where I was doing most of my passes. And if I would have made the pass there, I probably could have ended up getting ahead of him and finishing the race out that way and getting the win for the day. And so we're going up to this jump, and it was probably 65 feet, something like that. So good size, kind of in the upper end of the stuff you want to be doing. And I had a certain line coming in the corner that I was taking every time, and he had watched me on the last lap. So coming into it, he took that line. So I had to switch it up and do a brake check, basically. So instead of doing the long way around the corner, you come in and you square it up and you accelerate down sooner, but you have less momentum. So it evens out in the end. But the line I was in was rough coming up to the jump. So I'm going up and the bike is kind of chattering. And as we launched together, and we both were already over jumping the thing because you're trying to go as fast as you possibly can. So we're probably doing closer to like 70, maybe even 75 feet on the jump to like flat land on the backside and then try and fight for that corner. And right as I went off the launch, my rear tire kicked wrong. And it just pushed, it just felt like somebody just like took their hand at the last second, just pushed my rear end up a little. And so the bike was over rotating. And so I was coming down my front wheel. And so when in the air, you don't have a ton that you can do if you're rotating forwards. You can like lean back and stuff. And the other thing you do is you start grabbing gears in midair. So you're accelerating the rear wheel to try and get it to pull you back down. So you can hit the brake in midair and drop your front end, or you can accelerate and drop the rear end. So you can drop one of the two. So I was already in fourth gear. I was on 125, so I had 2 gears to go. So I went, click, click, and it wasn't enough to get the thing rotated. And so I knew I was screwed. And there's the debate of like, do you jump off or do you try and stay on the bike? And I was like just close enough where I was like, I might be able to ride this out maybe. Because once you jump off, it's, you're falling. You're probably doing about 35 miles an hour and you're falling like 20 feet out of the sky. And so it's like trying to just do that and jump and land on flat ground. Like there's a really high chance of breaking stuff when you land. And so you want to try and stay on the bike if you can. And I hit and did like a unicycle on the front for a moment. And I thought it was going to go down and then it just didn't. And it rolled over on me. And so all that impact and speed and everything just right onto my face. And the experience of it was like if you've ever been like hit by a wave real hard, but the wave was my consciousness leaving. So it's like I felt this like huge impact and then a sensation of kind of like fighting like underwater almost. And then I woke up 6.5 hours later, strapped to a board in the hospital. My front teeth were broken out because
holy shit,
the helmet had broken and the mouth guard went into my teeth and broke my teeth out in the front.
So your teeth are veneers?
Yeah, these are halfway, broken both in half. They didn't completely come out.
So they had to shave them down to points and put things on them?
Yep. And I didn't know where I was. I apparently had been waking up for hours and saying, where am I, what happened, and then passing back out. But this time waking up 6.5 hours later. So it's like, I was waking up trying to like get my bike. I was like, I thought I was still in the race. It's like, I didn't know what was going on. So I crashed, full impact. My bike, it's hard to visualize, but if you imagine a dirt bike, that back part of it is called a subframe. That frame had been moved over about 2 feet on the back and crushed all the way below the rear tire. It hit so hard, just bent the metal. And so they brought out an ambulance out there. I was completely unconscious on the track. They had to stop all the racing and stuff, get medical crew out there, put me on a board. They had an ambulance there, so I got loaded into an ambulance. I don't remember any of this. My heart rate was dropping, so they had like full code red as they're getting to the hospital and all this stuff. And for the next week, I really couldn't talk. Like, I had thoughts in my head and I knew, like, I had feelings and wants, but when I would go to articulate it, the words would get jumbled up. And so that's why I repeat myself sometimes still. It's like I had to relearn how to talk in doing all that. And, I wasn't cleared to drive for a month. My eye, whichever one it was, I don't remember now, right or left, but I blew all the blood vessels in it. So the whole thing like was completely red around, like it was all red. There was no white at all. And so I luckily kept my eye. It was crazy. Like I said, it took me about a week before I could really talk in full sentences correctly again. And it took me about a month before I was like kind of back to normal and into it. So, pretty crazy. I mean, that's why I say it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of risk associated with it too.
Matches your shirt. Bananas. Dude, so are you going to like keep doing that?
No, I mean, I raced for years after that, but no, I like car racing a lot. I'm actually better at it. And so that's where I'll get my racing itch from now on.
Well, at least that's a frame with some crumple points and airbags and and it's fun.
It's fun. Yeah, you still get a good rush off of it.
It's fun. Where do you go race around here? Where can you race around here?
Yeah. So there is, one thing you can do, it's not the safest thing, but I did it for a number of years. You can get like one of the hotter UTVs out there. So like either the Can-Am or the Polaris. And so I had a Maverick XRS. It's like it's basically 200 horsepower. It's so close it doesn't matter. It does 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds on dirt. It's very fast. And so there's just hundreds of miles of roads out here. So you can get a lot of rally race fun there. Snoqualmie has a circuit. You can go do some rally racing up there. And then there's also, I haven't raced with any of these groups, but there's local groups that will put on rally races in the areas also. So
it's a lot of fun. So you love chasing that high from the race.
Yeah.
That adrenaline.
There's no feeling. I mean, it's something I wish everyone could experience. Like the sensation of being on. Are you familiar with motocross, how it starts? It's a unique start in the motor racing world.
Don't they like start going around before it starts, or do they?
No, that's what makes it so awesome. Okay. It's a feeling I wish everyone could experience. So they line up every single bike in a line horizontally. So you're all at the same starting point, and there's a metal gate up above you or in front of your front tire. And there's a series of flags, so you're prepared for when it's going to drop. But when that gate drops, that's it, race is on. And so it is a mad dash of kicking and elbows and handlebars in the gut up to that first corner. And so, a typical local race, you'll be somewhere in the teens for the number of races. The big nationals we used to go to is 44 bikes wide. And so you got 44 bikes that are going to funnel down to about 3 on the other side, and then just a mosh pit of dirt bikes and everything in the middle. And so, the experience, you line up, and I mean, it's like you're kind of nervous, you're getting ready to do this, but you always have someone with you helping you pit. And so they got, water, Gatorade, you're kind of talking all that. And then they wave the 1 minute or I guess 2 minutes. I even forget how that works. But they basically are like, hey, start getting ready. And so, your person is like, okay, you need anything else? You good? No, okay, we're good. And so you put your goggles on, and there's this moment of like, it's just you with all these competitors next to you. They're going to do literally anything they can to get ahead of you. They'll ride over the top of you. They'll anything at all to get ahead of you in the next corner. And they go out there, everyone's warming their bike up, so it's pretty loud. There's a lot of noise and all that stuff. And they go out there and they turn the board sideways, which means the gate is going to drop somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds from now. And so everyone clicks it into gear, and you put your motor on the rev limiter. So imagine just sitting at a stoplight and you just have your foot on the floor with your car and it's just bouncing off the rev limiter. Mm-hmm. And so you're sitting there and you shift into gear and you release it out to the point that it's like almost ready to overpower the front tire brake, so you're like as sprung as ready as you can be, and everyone around you is doing that, so you can hear literally nothing. Like, you can feel your bike, but you can't even remotely hear your bike over anything else. It's so deafeningly loud, and you're staring at that thing, and then it wiggles, and as soon as you see the wiggle, you dump the clutch, and at that point it's just complete chaos, madness, insanity for about the first half a lap. Is when you really start to kind of wake up, like, okay, what the hell am I even doing? Where am I at in the race? How's, and you start playing through and managing the race consciously, but it's all impulse up into that first part, just reacting to what's going on. And it's like an adrenaline and excitement high that is just unduplicatable by anything else I've ever done.
Yeah. That seems like it's way higher stakes than jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And then you brought a whole nother level of like, people are being dirty.
Yeah, I wouldn't call any of it dirty. I mean, again, there's no I won't even say there's no kicking, because you could definitely push off someone a little bit and kind of disguise it, dabbing a foot, but there certainly isn't like punching each other.
Oh, I thought there would be like, wow.
No, because
just to try. Yeah.
The dirtiest thing that you would have is. It's an old pro trick, and I've had it done to me with an elbow. I've never successfully done it to anyone else, but the front brake is on the right handlebar. And so if you're going through a corner and you're close enough to someone, you could reach over and give that handlebar on their bike a little squeeze, and they'll fall over just immediately. It'll just lock their tire up and down they'll go. And so, but you can throw an elbow into that, that brake lever, and that'll take them out too. Most guys aren't hitting you because it's also easy to break stuff on your bike. But, if you're close in a corner, to go in with your elbows out and you're jamming your elbows into somebody's, soft side on their ribs or whatever, like, yeah, you definitely could do something like that.
Well, I mean, and there's also like the thought of, even if you didn't mean to, like sure. You said, there's a lot of wiggling. You can get whacked in the ribs right off by your dude right off the bat as soon as the thing drops, and then you got to process that pain while going around the second lap, and you're like, damn, can I keep doing? God damn, that hurt.
Yep.
And then you got to keep your shit together, and then try to focus on just like, what's your next thought? Get a track, keep going, get zen. Yeah. Then focus on where flow. I am competitively. How can I move up next dude?
Yep. Yeah. And you're watching, you're like, where am I faster? What are the lines I can pass in? Where am I going to hang it out more than they are? Some of the stuff you can do to kind of like push people, like you can leave your engine wide open behind them and just make them nervous and see if you can squeeze them. You can rub on people's swing arm with your tire as you go through. They're trying to turn and you're like pushing their bike, trying to slide it out. There's a bunch of stuff. Honestly, though, the most dangerous racing I've ever done, even more than the motocross, I did a hare and hound race in southern Idaho. So it's a 100-mile desert race, but you start with like 300 bikes all in a line. They call it the bomb. So you're in this giant sagebrush field, and there's these dudes that have these flags. You're sitting there, your bike is off. And as soon as they drop the flag, you have to kick your bike over and then go. And so it's like you're like hauling ass through this field, and you're, fourth gear, probably doing like 45, 50 miles an hour. And it's like I was going, and like one dude next to me hit a pothole wrong and just like started just ass over tea kettle crashing next to me and stuff. And like you just keep going. And in order to pass, it's really dusty, right? And so you get close to people and you literally cannot see the ground at all. You're just completely blind and you're hauling ass. And so what you'll do is you'll hold back just far enough on the dust, and you're watching for a spot where you're going to consciously be completely blind. So imagine like riding your dirt bike at like 40 or 50 miles an hour through rough terrain that you're not allowed to see. So you have no idea what's really there with your eyes closed. That's what the experience is like because it's so dusty. And so what you'll do is you'll look, and if there's like a hill or a crossing or something up there where you feel like you can get into a rougher lane and get beside someone, that maybe you can get over that faster than they can. And so you'll pace, and you'll decide to go. And then it's just complete commitment to the unknown and hope. And like I've gone up, like in that race, I went up and over a ridge in the rough that was just a cliff, turned out to be. And it's like, so you're like basically jumping down the cliff. And luckily it was only like 6-8 feet of a drop. It wasn't like 30 and I died. It's like it was enough that I just like pulled the front tire up and landed kind of hard and kept going past them. But those guys are really, really crazy. Like that's, and if you hurt yourself, man, I mean, you're 30, 40 miles from the nearest road.
Yeah, and you got hit by a car.
Yeah, that was down Baja. That was real early on. Yep. Yeah, I was hauling ass. Baja is like real low intensity. It's like it lulls you to sleep in how chill. I mean, you're hauling ass, right? But it's basically just you out there. There's no one around. And then all of a sudden something bad is happening. And that's what bites you. And so I was hauling ass on the track and come around a corner and there was a pit crew that was driving the wrong way on the course. And so it's like, I tried to get up and they tried to swerve, but we came together and I, tipped over. I was only doing like 10 miles an hour by the time I hit him. I went from like 50 down to 10 and then bumped into him and knocked me over. But yeah, I mean, you get hit by a car. Like one of my friends
Did you recover from that okay?
Yeah, it was fine. It was totally fine. I was
Not
just
like when you got fucked up hitting.
Oh God. Yeah. No, I was just pissed off. I was like, I mean, on one hand, it's like, I'm like race rage. And so you're like, what the fuck? You're freaking out. On their hand, it's like, hey, dude, you're out in the middle of nowhere. Like, these guys have an issue with you. That's, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want someone pulling a gun on you out in the middle. So it's like, you got to kind of balance. And you just fucked up their car because you hit it, so they're not happy with you. It's like, I mean, if you want to talk Mexico stories, I actually have some fun ones. If you want to talk about crazy.
Yeah, everything that's cool.
Yeah. So
I got to use little girl's room.
Yeah. It's
ass bleeding detail as to how to identify psilocybe cyanescens or psilocybe azarizens or
okay.
Yeah, and he's like, the psilocybe has a gelatinous pellicle and blah 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 and bruises to the touch and blah blah blah, and he goes into ass bleeding detail, and to the point where I'm like, okay, he's calling it psilocybe, maybe I should call it psilocybe.
That's funny.
But then again, it's like how much of like you control somebody's speech, you control like how they think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's literally how people think is with speech. Yeah, funny. Sounds like an interesting guy. Our society, the whole world needs a mycelium revolution to happen in a big way.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. So, I enjoy it. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a good thing to do, and whatever. It's only like getting more and more legal everywhere you go.
Sure seems to be.
Yeah. Like I was just seeing on Facebook, there was a Facebook ad for like Amanita muscaria.
Oh man. Yeah, those are ones I have no desire to toy with. That's I think they are legal because it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, if you want to try it, have at it, buddy. Like they're pretty rough from what I understand.
Yeah, that's something I haven't wanted to try, but
I mean, I want to go down and do an ayahuasca event too.
Amazing.
I think I've talked most of my friends into being willing to go. I really I know you can do it anywhere, but I really want to go down into the jungle. Like I want to find somewhere that's like a little sketchy, mostly safe. Like I want mostly Western, but just a little sketchy so that the setting feels right.
Well, it's romantic. It's a romantic idea. I want to do it. My brother went down to Ecuador. I don't know why he didn't do it, but, well, no, he made up a bunch of excuses. He's like, it's a long thing.
Yeah, I've been down to Ecuador. I don't know. I don't think they have a huge culture of that down there. At least when I went, it wasn't like.
Yeah, talk about your Mexico time.
Yeah, man. So we had some crazy experiences down there. I'll just go through like some of the ones that are just kind of jaw dropping. So, when I went down there, the safety timing and scoring was just abysmal. And so we ended up starting a company down there and,
hold up. What? Hold on.
Oh yeah. So we went down and did our first Baja race. And when we went down there, there was no speed limits. So you'd have like 25-mile-an-hour roads through towns, trophy trucks, 130 miles an hour through these things, like school zones. Crazy during the race. And the only safety system they had is that you would carry a scrap of paper with you in your backpack and a pencil. And if you crashed and hurt yourself, you'd write down the last race mile that you saw, because like every 1 to 2 miles, there's like a race mile marker. And so you write down the last one you saw, and you give that to another racer going by, and then they would carry that to a pit and try and radio out on CB radios that so-and-so is hurt. That's it. That was the whole safety system.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, bananas, man. You're in the middle of nowhere.
That is brutal.
And so we created a company using off-the-shelf hardware. So we created speed limits that were applied in there through time penalties. So we made the time penalty worse than just doing the speed limit. So it's faster time-wise to just do the speed limit through towns. We created a two-way SATCOM system, so we knew roughly where people were. We were within a few minutes of where they were at any time, but still massively better. SOS signals, all that. And so I don't want to go too much into that, but it was a great experience, and it led to all these other things. The only reason I bring it up. If you want to see me in there's a documentary called Dust to Glory with the number 2, so the second one. And my team and I were featured in the first 5 minutes of it. I get interviewed there. We get to talk. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun being attached to all those guys. So,
holy shit, man, that's a lot to process. So, you and your team go down there. You see this issue,
yeah,
and you develop technology to attempt to solve the problem. Where did that go?
Yeah, I mean, we were making good money. It's a ton of work, and you really got to like love to do it. And so we ran the company for a number of years, and then it was one of those things where it was like time to really, really grow and put a lot more energy into it, or kind of stop. And so we decided that we were happier to just hand it off to another group. So there's not a ton of money in racing, and it took a lot of time. So we were making money, but it just wasn't as advantageous as it needed to be. And so we passed the torch. But anyways, it gave way to all these experiences. So one of the times being down there, when we were still developing the hardware and everything, I got hooked up with a Score International's head of it. And so the race director and I became friends. And I was down there for the San Felipe 250, and we're helping lay the course. So there's 3 of us, the race director, myself, then my best friend who is also in this company helping us. And there's a 2-man team. So there's the effectively like the butler of Score down there, who he was driving trucks and trailers. And then we're in UTV, a Polaris 1000. And we're on the course, and we're mapping out the whole course, and we're like laying the signs and doing all this stuff, right? And it's a 250-mile course, and so it takes about 20 hours to do the whole thing, and you do it in one shot. So you start real early, and you're in the buggy for 20 hours straight. And we're out in the middle of nowhere. We're by these power lines, and it's kind of whoops, and we're doing 50, 60 miles an hour, pounding through them. And all of a sudden, behind the cactus, all these dudes with old FALs, assault rifles, FALs,
FAL, yeah,
start coming out behind the cactus and screaming Spanish at us, pointing the guns. And so we stop, and Dick, the race director, is like, whatever they ask for, just comply. We're going to give them the race vehicle if they want it, whatever it is. Like, just don't put up any kind of fight. You'll get us all killed. That's what he says to all of us. They get up there. Dick speaks maybe 30 words of Spanish, and they are like fucking like barrels in our face, like gonna murder us, right? And we're going back and forth, and like when we had stopped, we came up, they had a truck with a mounted 50 cal in it that was now pointed at us too. And so it is like frightening. You know, we're like 40 miles from our next pit before we got there, maybe 30 miles from the next pit. So it's like we're still a long ways out there. Like we ain't walking out of here and surviving if they don't leave us with some water. And it turns out that it was a branch of the Mexican military, and that they had gotten intel that there was going to be a cartel drug runner group going through this area, like hauling cocaine. And so when they saw us coming through, we fit the description they were looking for. They thought that was us. And so they were literally ready to like get in a gunfight with these cartel members. It was nuts, dude. And so like once they finally were like, look, you know, we're race officials, we're here for this, all that. You know, they got us out of the car and just gutted the fucking thing. Like just went through everything looking for any illicit substance, anything at all. Obviously we were clean. And so, you know, then they like, you know, quit feeling so threatened and let us get our stuff back together and send us on our way. But pretty wild experience there. Another one, this is, oh God, I got two more. They're just crazy. So, one of the races we did, so it was the Baja Sur, which means it runs the opposite way. So most all of your Baja, it starts northern on the peninsula and goes south, or it's a loop. So this one was one of the only ones where you start southern and go north. And so we had 3 races over the course of 17 days that we were stewards for. So we're running the timing and scoring and all the safety systems and working with all the officials and all that, getting the race all laid out. And so we flew into Cabo. We did the first race down there, and then we rented a van, drove it all the way up to the top of the peninsula, did another race, and then hopped in with the third race and followed that one all the way back down to Cabo over the course of 17 days. And so we had done the first race, and we're driving the van, and it's just us out in the middle of the peninsula. And there's a rule that you just never want to be driving within about 3 hours of it getting dark. Just there's banditos out there and stuff. It's not safe. And the roads are really sketchy. Like the roads will be, you know, whatever it is, and then the white line, and the white line is like cliff edge. It's like you go over the white line, your tire is not on the road. It is falling off of a cliff. It's crazy. And there's semi trucks driving, so it's like we got a late start because we were up partying and drinking after the first race was done, and we were trying to get to El Rosarito, which is kind of like a safe haven for all the racers come through that area. It's this little tiny town. There's like maybe one hotel. There's definitely a hotel. There might be 2, or motel. But it's like this oasis of safety as you're driving in between the peninsula. And like I said, we got a late start, so it was pitch black. And we're still 30, 40 miles south of El Rosarito, maybe 50 miles south, something like that. So we still got, like another 45 minutes of driving left. And we were trying to make up time. This is just funny. So there was an ambulance that had its lights on, and we had passed them 3 times because there's like these checkpoints you have to stop where ambulances can keep going. So like a ambulance with siren and lights on, we were doing like 100 miles an hour in this rented van for hours. And so we kept passing them, and they'd pass us back. I don't know. That was funny. But so we're driving, and pitch black, and we come up on this like lifted F-250 truck. There's 2 dudes standing outside the thing, and as soon as we go past them, they immediately hop in the car, fire the thing up. And so in these kinds of situations, what actually normally gets you is that you're driving so fast that you screw up and crash and die. And I wasn't the one driving, my friend was. And so, we kick it up from like 90 to like 110, which is about all this van can do. It really can't go any faster. And these guys are slowly catching us. So we're doing 110 miles an hour, and these guys are still slowly catching us. And I thought for sure we were going to get killed. Like we heard about these kinds of things. It's like fit the exact type of truck. These guys, everything is like checking out that like this is the worst possible scenario. These guys are going to take the vehicle. We got full of computer equipment, all this. They're going to take that stuff and kill us. And so I'm texting with my brother. Well, I sent out some text messages. I don't think we had service. We might have. I think I tried to call and it didn't go through. But I was basically giving him like, hey, if you don't hear from us, this is our last known location and this is what's happening. Come try and find us. And so the truck finally gets up to us. And again, we're doing like 110. And I'm like just trying to talk my driver of like, hey, be calm. We're going to take corners at a speed that we know we can get through. Like it's okay that they're going to catch us. They are going to catch us. We can't outrun them. Let them do it and just drive, keep things steady. And so they come up on us. We're doing, again, over 100 miles an hour, and they get within 4 feet of our bumper just sitting there with their brights on. And we're doing over 100 miles an hour with this truck, like right there. And they sit there for a good like minute or two. So our adrenaline's just pegged. And then they swerve out and they go shooting around us. And so as soon as they shoot around us, we're like slowing down back down to like 80, 90. And they go shooting off in the distance ahead of us. And then we're like, dude, so weird, right? And then we get like 5 more miles down the road, doing like 80, 90 still. And they're on the side of the road again, waiting for us. Go by, same thing, get back on our ass. And they do this 2 more times. So they go up and pass us again, and then again the 3rd time. And every time they're like as they pass, they're like trying to like hit us as they go by. I mean, just like this, they're trying to make us crash is what they were trying to do. And then if we would have crashed, then they could go back and grab whatever they wanted out of it.
Oh, that's freaking nuts.
Nuts. And so we finally get up to, El Rosarita and, talk to him and stuff. We're like, yeah, we've been having issues with him, same thing. Don't go out at night. So that was that. 2 more crazy stories. We'll do one more, my other Bandito story, and then the one with the cops.
Okay.
So, different race. Race is all done. We're in the race vehicle. There's 4 dudes, 3 dirt bikes. We're in this like built Roush Raptor. So this thing is like pretty freaking fast, but it's loaded down to the gills, right? I don't know what our weight would have been, but it's like a lot heavier than what it would normally be driving around. And we're out in the so instead of Southern, we're up at San Felipe, and we're in this kind of like no man's flat area that's like this dried up lake bed. And so it's like one of those roads where it just like goes up to the horizon and disappears, no turns or anything. And we're driving, and this group of 3 cars comes up on us, these 2 trucks and this car. And they go up, and they're spaced out, and so they pass. Like the first one passes, not a big deal, right? The other ones are kind of catching up, and this guy slows down. Like nothing seems weird. And then they, like, in a very well choreography, the middle car acts like they're going to go past us. They get beside us, but then they use the 3 cars to lock us in and push us off the road in like unison, right? And so we can't back up, we can't stop, anything like that. And so they push us down off the road. And again, I wasn't driving. And as we're getting pushed off the road, we put it in a 4-wheel drive. And so our expectation is that we're going to like run. So it's like as soon as we we like slow down, and then we do a really, really hard stop so that the front car gaps us just a little bit so we have room to turn and get around them. Trucks are in 4-wheel drive. As soon as we come to a stop, all their doors open and they come running out of the thing, right? And so we swerve lower down into the desert, just wide open on this truck, and then screaming back up onto the road again, put it back in 2-wheel drive, and then take the truck up to like 130, 140 miles an hour all the way until we get to town. And like that one was probably the most dangerous because it's like our driver was like passing on blind corners on a couple spots where it's like we couldn't see around well enough if there was an oncoming car. But these guys are catching us, and we're not going to let them catch us, and we're faster than they were this time. And so, we're just driving insanely recklessly. And as soon as we got close enough to the town, there's this group called the Green Angels. They're kind of like this like mercenary group that sort of like polices, and we managed to get a hold of those guys, and they had sent a car out and stuff. And so it's like once they saw those guys, it was like oil to water. They just stopped following us. So also crazy.
That must have felt like like you're running from a predator that
Yeah.
tries to bite you and he barely missed it.
Yep.
Like jumping out of the freaking bullpen just before the bull freaking stabs you and then you're just barely made it.
Totally.
That could have totally, and that just shows how desperately poor they are to do that risky shit to try to like force accidents.
Yeah.
And force you into the desert to rob you.
Wild shit.
You don't know if it's the government or bandits.
So this last one, so it's that same 17-day trip, and we're right in the middle of it. So we're doing that race that was up at the top before we started going back down. And it was a multi-day race where the start was always in the same spot, but the course would go in different directions. And we were up like super late, like we're up to like 1 or 2 in the morning, getting all the numbers in, go to bed, and we got to like, the race starts at 6 a.m. So we're like it's like 4 in the morning. We've got 3 hours of sleep, whatever, nothing, right? We're just exhausted. And we're going through this little podunk wide spot in the road town. It was 25 miles an hour, and my driver isn't paying attention, and so we're doing 60 through it. But there's no one around. Nobody at all, right? Except one cop. So flips his lights on, pulls us over, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to arrest you. He comes up, hey, I'm arresting you guys. You're driving recklessly, all this stuff. And we're like, no, you can't arrest us. I was like, we are paying your precinct to provide security for this race that we are the stewards for, or the officials for. And that's true. And so he thinks for a moment. And he's like, okay, give me your passports and then come by the precinct after the race is over, which means, okay, I'm going to arrest you after the protection money has been paid and you're done with the race. We're like, hey, we can't do that, all this stuff. And my driver is out of the car. So he's got him out of the car and he's talking whether or not he's going to arrest us. And so finally my driver is like, okay, dinero, like, I'm going to give you some money. All right. And so the cop we get back into the car and we just locked the doors and started it and then drove as fast as the thing would go with him chasing us to a military checkpoint that was only a mile or 2 up the road. And when we get to the military checkpoint, we slow down, roll the window, like, hey, like, we need help. This cop is, trying to arrest us. We didn't do anything wrong, all this and stuff. And they're like, okay, just go, just go. He won't come through here. But that was another one. I was there texting my girlfriend at the time, now wife, of like, hey, if you don't hear from me, I'm getting thrown into a Mexican jail in like such and such town, and this is my Latin long. And so yet another one. But
surprised the Army didn't try to extort you for money.
Man, no, they're cool. The Army is legit. It's the cops that are super crooked. So
damn. Yeah, people don't realize how much of a Disneyland fantasy America is.
No clue.
Yeah, no clue compared to the real world. Like you said, there's no 911. There's no nothing. Like, you run from criminals, you run from predators, and hope you make it. There's these. You don't go out at night. Like, a level of affluenza that Americans have, like things we take for granted. Like all the time.
Yeah,
crazy world.
Nobody is willing to go put themselves in those positions where they even could have those experiences. Yeah,
which is really, really exciting that you were doing that. It
sucks at the time. Mm-hmm. There's not one of those stories where I was happy that any of that was happening.
Yeah, no, I don't think that you would want that. And I could see why, people would want to immigrate from that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, that would suck. Like, oh yeah, don't go out at night. You don't know who's going to get you. That's scary.
Yeah.
Being chased, being pursued by predators.
Yep. Yeah. The scariest one by far was the one in the middle of the night. Out in the middle of nowhere in the peninsula, just because you're even when we were being chased by the group of 4, it's like, there's 4 of us in the car. It's like, you're not actually safe, but there's some sense like I'm with my boys, like we can kind of hold our own, it was daytime. But the one in the middle of the night where it was just two of us out there, just me and my co-driver, and then this group of banditos that was coming like that. Yeah, I was very certain that we were going to die. So.
Yeah. Not fun.
Not fun.
Not fun, man. Damn. So now you've put that life behind you. No more crazy.
Oh no, I want to go back.
Oh, you're gonna go back to Mexico?
Yeah, you just learn your mistakes and do it better.
Yeah. So you're gonna stay marginally attached to the racing community in some way?
Sure want to. Yeah.
Yeah. So what marathon do you want to do next?
God, I've done all the ones. So I've always wanted to do a sub 4 hour, which I did last year.
Okay.
And so that checked that box. Part of me wants to go do Boston because that's the last big cool one, but I don't think I'm going to do any. I did a 50K. I really like that. And there's a couple other interesting runs that are I think 30K. I think that's kind of the perfect distance. And so there's a few 30Ks that are just real pretty that I would go do. Honestly, as far as human power goes, the only thing I have left on my list is to do an Ironman. I've done the 2.5 mile swim. Excuse me. I did the. Apparently my voice is gone.
No worries. Swimming.
So I did the Coeur d'Alene Crossing. So that's 2.5 miles. That one's real cool. I've done a Century Bike, the Fondo, all the way around, and I've done the Ironman or the marathon. So now it's just I got to put them all together on the same day. It's the only thing left.
How often do you stretch?
2-3 times a week.
Okay. Yeah.
After I run.
Yeah. So you stretch after the run. Do you do more of a dynamic warm up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yep, exactly. Yeah. So I run real springy, I would say, springy without a lot of power for the first mile. And then I kind of get a flow, and I've got a few different strides that I do. But, yeah, I try and build into it. I really don't feel like running actually starts until you're at mile 3 to 6.
True. Same. Yeah. Yeah. I try to just, and I try to just pull the brakes, just keep pushing on the brakes. And it's really difficult when, you're in a running event and you see people and they're, yeah. And especially for me, it's oh, why is that person ahead of me?
Mm-hmm.
I should be ahead of them. And then before I know it, I start thinking everything's a competition. And that's where I got to be no, this is a marathon.
Yep.
Stop it. You need to slow down. Every time I think go faster, go slower. I just got to go slower.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I do anytime I see, because I know exactly what you're talking about, there's always those rabbits out there. And anytime you see those, you just got to tell yourself hey, that's the trap that's going to make me gas out and have a really crappy finish.
Mm-hmm.
Just, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to tell yourself.
Being wise about that and understanding that's a marathon. Have you read the book Born to Run?
No. I've had that recommended to me several times, though. I need to. Yeah. Several other people have said it's really good.
Yeah, it's a good one. It encouraged me to run with the 5-finger shoes.
Oh, cool. The Vibrams, yeah.
Yeah, that's generally what I run in. And once I changed the way I ran and started running more on my tiptoes, it just made more sense, and I could go farther. And
yep.
Yeah, so. Yeah.
So what I find is, because I used to do the same, once you build up that new muscle memory of that, catching yourself and getting your foot to work correctly, then going back to a good running shoe is the sweet spot, because you still keep that same that muscle memory. You still have that, but you can land on your heel a little. It's just easier on knees, I find.
Yeah, I agree, and I've thought about that myself, because there's a lot of great lightweight shoes, and there's no way around it. You're gonna have to. There's gonna be a heel strike somewhere.
Yeah,
and. Yeah, it's just something I've considered. So what about So you mentioned crypto. Have you had any interest in the stock market?
No, it's rigged.
It's rigged.
No, I mean, I throw some money in, I have an IRA and I throw some money into index funds. Like if you read Bogle's little book on money or whatever that is, the four pillars of investing, everything basically comes down to you are at such a disadvantage that you're not really going to get any alpha over a long period of time. And if you aren't in a position where you have access to extended data or trading at night or any of those types of things the big boys do, your only path to winning is index funds.
Yeah, low cost index funds. So where do you think is your best investment? What do you think is the best asset class?
Real estate. I really like real estate. You can't make more of it. Bitcoin. Bitcoin is digital real estate, and as we're like too late in the podcast to really dive very deep into this, but I have a belief, I would call it. I don't think I think that the currency that you transact a service in is the group that should get the taxes for that transaction. And if you're transacting service in crypto, that there should not be any taxes that are incurred in it. And the whole mindset from that goes that I was thinking about, like, what gives the government authority to impose a tax at all? Just thinking about it from a theoretical sense. And it's like, well, if I go buy a taco down in Mexico, the U.S. government doesn't have any business receiving any of that money. Maybe the Mexican government does. But, the locality of where things are purchased is really an antiquated way of thinking about goods and services when most of our economy is digital. It's online. There are no borders anymore. And so if you look at it that way, and it's not about the physical location where it takes place, that it has more to do with what currency is used, gives them an authority over that domain. So if you're using a currency like Bitcoin that has no owner, you shouldn't have to pay any taxes on that. And I realize that'll get you put in jail if you exercise that, but I think that's a true statement. And so, long term, as fiat currencies, grow and bust and continue to cycle over and over, Bitcoin will continue to be there. And so I think over a long enough timeline, we will have Bitcoin become the reserve currency of most of the world, and that the transactions done on Bitcoin will have no taxes applied to them.
I'm not sure. I don't know, what this tax thing is, or is Bitcoin taxed?
If you report it.
Okay. I don't know what the tax thing is on it.
Yeah, just taxes in general in that way. So, right now we have this horrific situation going on where the American dream is very consciously being destroyed. And the American dream I'm talking about specifically is people should all own their own house. Everyone should have at least one home that they own. And what's happening now is that governments are creating stimulus money. They're printing, right? So they're inflating. So they're taking a silent tax out of everybody's bank account in the form of inflation. They're taking that inflation, they're giving it to their buddies. So Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Blackstone, any of these, they're giving it to these groups to provide stimulus services, create bombs, blow stuff up, whatever. These groups then take that money and buy real estate with it, and eventually people get priced out. And that's the situation we're in. So it's a government corporation scheme to take all ownership away from American people. So this is something, if I ever get any kind of a voice to platform this opinion, that this would certainly be my life's work above anything else, is to institute perhaps another constitution, a constitutional amendment or something like that. I don't know. The minimum a bill, I like amendments because there are restrictions of what the government can do instead of restrictions on what you can do. So I think it makes more sense there. But institute a law that it's illegal for corporations or governments to own any piece of property is designated as a single family home of real estate. Make it so only that natural born people, natural humans can own it, and specifically citizens can own it. So if a Blackstone corporation wants to own 100 homes, that's fine. One of their natural people is going to do it. And if somebody breaks a hip in one of those properties, they can sue that person directly and thus sue the company. There'd be no veil. Now, when it comes to plexes, all that, those are money-making endeavors. Nothing has to change there. But individual people need to be the only ones that can own individual homes. And that would go a long ways to solve the problem.
I didn't real. Oh, I guess that makes sense. I always. So you would like to see a law that individual homes can't be purchased by Walmart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any corporation.
Okay.
Corporations or governments, only individual natural people can own them. And the other thing is that on your primary residence, it should be illegal for you to pay property tax on it. If you want to own 3 homes, then yeah, go ahead and tax those other ones. But if you own something, no one should be able to come up to you and take rent from it. That's preposterous. That's not what ownership is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, don't pay your property tax. So you really owns your home.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
It is crazy.
Thomas Jefferson once said, real estate is the most sophisticated form of slavery conceived by man.
Yep.
Which was interesting. Because either way, like, even if you have the land and you own it outright, like, you're a tenant to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
well, because of your government, you are.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, but you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this is where I'm not anti-government. I do have friends that are anarchists. Mm-hmm. And I would prefer that. But, the reality of human nature is that a vacuum of power is not sustainable. Is that any power vacuum will be filled by a group. And so with that being a fact, a violent group, I should say, a monopoly on violence, a monopoly on violence will always exist within a group of people larger than, whatever the Dunbar number, 60 people, 70 people. The monopoly on violence will exist. And so since that is true with human nature, I want to have political authority over that monopoly on violence, which is where government comes from.
Totally. And dude, you were a black hat hacker. Like, what did you do? Did you do like DDoS attacks? Why did you do it? Were you trying to like prove something?
Yeah, I think that any person that considers themselves smart wants to try and prove it to themselves that they are. They want some like tangible evidence. And so I was born in 83, mid-90s, the movie Hackers came out. There was a real big hacker culture kind of counter anarchist push going on. And I was very much swept up in the romance of that. Computers were going from being individual units to networked. A lot of the security features weren't ironed out yet, so it wasn't all that hard to hack into stuff. I found it to be a really interesting puzzle. I just wanted to see what I could get into. It's probably okay to talk about this stuff now. I mean, I had a group of 2 other guys I would do it with. We never took any money. We never harmed anyone. We never damaged any systems. I want to put that out there, and that's true. We never did. But we did break into like an insurance company, and we downloaded like a bunch of case files. So we had like detailed information about like some of the DUIs of our teachers and stuff like that. That wasn't knowledge out there. Most of the hacking I did was against the school. I didn't do a ton with businesses. We would break into individual people's computers. If their stuff wasn't patched, we'd execute shell code through just like common 0-day kind of exploits. And then we just like put files on their computer, like put like a file on your desktop that just says I'm watching you or something like that, so when they log in, they're like, what the, we managed to compromise the database for our school. So I had everybody's password, principal, everybody, every single person, password, username printed out in my drawer all through high school. And once we had that, then we could really run amok. So we figured out how to escalate our access in the library to be unrestricted admin access. And so we could go into those computers and run this exploit, which was just a matter of copying the right files around. It really wasn't hard. And then once you do that, combined with these usernames and passwords, we got a copy of the grading software, and we got all the way to the point where we opened up our grades in the actual school database with the real software as our teachers. And it was one of those of like, gosh, like I'm not going to go change my grade and give myself an A. I'm good with the B. So I never actually changed it. But had we done it, I mean, there would have been no record. Otherwise, we could have definitely changed our grades. So that was some of the craziest. I mean, some of the cool stuff, we went to DEF CON for a number of years. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I want to go to that. I keep hearing all about that.
Oh, man. It's for anyone who doesn't know, it's the world's biggest hacker conference. When we were going, this would have been like 2008 to like 14 in that range. 1,200 hackers would show up, maybe 1,400 on the big days or big years. And just complete digital anarchy, insanity going on. You don't bring your phone. You don't bring the hard drive in your computer. You run it off a thumbstick. You throw the thumbstick away and you reflash the BIOS. Or you buy hard drives and you throw them away when you get home. You put your other ones in after you reflash the BIOS. But don't swipe your credit card. That'll get stolen for sure. And just insane antics. I mean, one year someone made a ATM that would give you up to $60. You put your card in, punch your number in. It obviously wouldn't know what it is, if it's right or wrong when you enter your PIN. And it would give you up to $60. Otherwise, it would give you an error that would actually, 60 real 20s. But then it would radio all your info back to the home base and they'd empty your bank account. That happened one year. We were at the Riviera, which I don't even think that hotel exists anymore. I think they tore it down. But they had a huge video marquee in the front. Somebody like put a video of that person dancing on there. They like hacked into the system and uploaded a different video. They like hacked into the call board. I forget what that's called. Do you remember those systems are called? The like the PHX or whatever, the phone systems. Doesn't matter. Yeah. I forget what they're called. But somebody hacked into the hotel's call system for all of the concierge helplines. They have buttons all over of like, hey, I need help. Yeah. And they rerouted it to their buddy's room. It's like all fucking night, like his phone is ringing off the hook of drugs. Be like, what hot dogs up to my room? So it's like the guy had to get like unplugged. One of the other funny one, the badges. So this got me on the front page. This is like my only claim to fame when we went there. The admission badges they give you are printed circuit boards with processors on them and stuff. And every year they have something different. So like one year they had a display, all this stuff. One of the years they had a IR transmitter receiver, so the same basic component that runs like your TV remote. And so one of my friends, Chow, he Asian guy, he reprogrammed his buddies to have the reset codes of urinals running on it all the time. And so the guy walked every urinal he went up to, they would just start flushing and splashing them. Oh God, so funny. But yeah, my only claim, these guys are so freaking smart, I mean, just like hyper crazy intelligent people that go to this place. And the only thing that was cool was the website, when the conference is going on, has like 4 or 5 slots for like the most interesting hack that Dark Tangent, the guy who runs the thing, whatever he thinks is the coolest stuff, he posts like 4 or 5 things for the day. And I got on that list once. So I took the admission badge that had a SD card on it, and I wrote a TCP/IP stack and a HTTP web browser on it that would serve out any files that were on that SD card, and then hooked an Ethernet cable up to it. And then I hosted a web page off of it that described how to convert your badge into a web browser off of the badge running as a web browser. And so he thought that was super cool. And so
that is super cool.
Yeah. So
good for you.
That was sweet. So, yeah, so that was fun.
Damn, that's Techne.
That's Techne. That's Techne. Yeah.
So you can't even go to DEF CON and even trust that these shady people ain't going to try to swipe your credit card.
Oh, dude, don't bring it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
They're
do
all
not
just
bring it.
dirty pirates.
I mean, most of them are down. It's like some of the smartest, most socially awkward people that you could possibly imagine have this license to get away with anything that they could ever do. And they've got this like secret superpower that they sit home with all day, every single day, that they don't dare actually use because it's totally illegal. And that there's so many other of them around that they can hide in the crowd. And so when you create that kind of environment, anything goes.
Damn. I guess that's part of the fun. So if you're going to go to DEF CON, leave all your electronics and your card in your room. Only take cash with you.
Yep. Don't turn your phone on. Don't bring a smartwatch.
Paper business cards only.
Yep.
Can't show off nothing other than what you can do on a circuit board that's on your that's your ID card. But other than that, it sounds cool as hell.
Oh, it's so fun. And I mean, I run Linux, so it's like you do bring your computer. It's patched, it's okay. You definitely don't want to continue using your hard drive after because there's probably something on it, but the hardware is still good. So that's why you reflash your BIOS when you get home. And well, you get your BIOS.
So you got to reformat everything?
Oh, you physically throw your hard drives away.
Oh.
So I buy, brand new hard drives. I put them in. I create a fresh install on it, and I take a checksum of my BIOS, and then I go down there. And when I get home, I reflash that checksum of the BIOS on it, so I know that the chip boot code is good. And I throw that hard drive away, and I put my original hard drive back in and continue using the system.
Hold up, it is that dirty.
Literally, yeah. I'm not over.
By the time you go home, you are flashing the BIOS on your personal computer at home. It's like you might as well just go buy a new computer.
Well, on the laptop you bring down there, yeah.
Okay. So on the laptop you bring down there. So you are still worried about getting hacked somehow.
Oh yeah.
In your hotel room, that could be like, let's say it's in Vegas, and your hotel room's like way up the strip.
Yeah.
And everything you leave in there. Somehow you're what is your concern? Obviously you've seen Trojan viruses. So how are they getting like to your stuff in the hotel room from the convention?
Yeah, so funny enough, I'm actually making a video game right now, or at least we're creating a prototype for a video game to show this exact thing. So there's only a few ways to actually hack a computer. There's buffer overflow attacks. There's shellcode injection. There's stealing passwords and then doing privilege upgrades. It's all pretty much the same stuff. And so when you're down there, the ways that you can get hacked is, you're on a Wi-Fi. 'Cause it's cool. You want your computer down there, right? Like you're showing off shit you do. You're like writing code. You're like trying to break into stuff.
So you're bringing a sacrificial computer.
Yeah, it's fun, right? Everyone.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you're on a Wi-Fi system. Those drivers in that in your Wi-Fi stack have potential flaws in it. A 0-day exploit means that it basically means no one knows about it. So it's a flaw in the code where either somebody figures out how to do a buffer overflow, so they send package sizes that are wrong based on the headers, and that there's a bug in the driver where it doesn't detect it correctly. And then when they overflow that data, they're flipping bits in there to create some kind of open door so that they can execute code on your machine to get access to it. And so either that's going on, or if you accidentally click on something, if you step away from your computer, if somebody is like real sneaky, slides a USB drive in, there's just so many ways that stuff could get on there. And a lot of these guys, they'll spend all year trying to find an exploit in a Windows, driver for this exploit for a specific card or something, just so that when they get down there, they're going to be running this script kiddie out looking to see if they can crack into someone just to get a laugh. So it's like, even if you do nothing wrong, you could just have bugs in your code running on your operating system that would be an open door.
Damn. Yeah, dude, this is so much more. Everything you said, that is good. Good. No, I understand. I know the script kiddie's not, but I'm understanding what you're saying. I'm just thinking how it relates back to you at the Burberry workspaces when you were doing the AI and cybersecurity deal.
Yeah.
Totally relates.
Yep.
And that nobody there even got into the weeds as to that.
I mean, most people haven't. Computers, they run every aspect of our life, but something people don't think about is that, inside of your computer, there's, hard drives are in the measurement of trillions of bytes right now. Mm-hmm. Of that executable code in there, at any given time, you're only 3 bytes away from having every aspect of your life being completely wide open to some malicious attacker. Like, I guarantee there's no system where 3 bytes of data being changed the wrong way wouldn't open the door for someone to be able to take everything about you. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think, most people don't like to think about it because there's nothing they can do about it. And furthermore, most people haven't spent a large amount of time figuring out how to do it for fun. And so it doesn't put me in any weird category, but it's a really interesting puzzle. So this game we're doing called Hackman, this is I woke up in the middle of the night like 6 weeks ago, 3 a.m., and sketched this idea, and then forgot about it. And I ran into one of my friends. He's a game developer, local Jeff Spicer. If you know him, shout out. Love that guy. Told him about the idea, but what I want to do is that just take real hacking tech. So there's 3 basic hacking techniques. There's social engineering, where you're just trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes to give up information or do something that they shouldn't do that opens a door for you to do something malicious. There's physical security. So that's, lock picks, dressing in a collared shirt that looks like all the other employees and having a fake name tag, and then walking up to any building that has more than 20 employees with a ladder. You can pretty much go anywhere you want if you're just holding a ladder and you have a hat on. Just stuff like that. That's, physical security compromises. And then the stuff that we talked about, which is shellcode injection, buffer overflow attacks, or reverse engineering code for race cases. And so we're making this really simple game that lets you actually really do that, but it takes away a lot of the complicated nuance and makes it much simpler. So all the techniques and actions are real, but you don't have to go into the minutia as deeply to actually go and do it.
Okay, so yeah, you're developing a game of the many things that you do, and this game has to do with penetration testing through packets that you create?
Well, it's a little, you're this little dude, and there's all these spots you can go to that are businesses, and so you have to. So all of the bots in there, all the non-playable characters are little AI LLMs. And so they're all preloaded with data that they're not supposed to give up, but they have tells that if people hit on that, just like a real human, they'll start to talk more freely and give that information up. So we have social engineering in there through artificial intelligence. We have where you look at what the uniforms are and all this type of stuff. And so you have to, in some levels, dress your guy in a way that would get you past security and stuff. So there's the whole, again, social engineering piece. And then I wrote from scratch a virtual machine that runs JavaScript code in there, but it visualizes the entire memory stack of a program as it runs. And then if you run buffer overflows, or in the open source code that you're looking at, see bugs in there that you can subvert and tweak those bits in the thing. And so you can do, see, one real common thing with the shellcode injection is most of your group, I presume, knows some about programming, right? Maybe?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay. So I'll give you like the 30-second hacker thing. So if you're going to crack into a piece of software, there's two things that you're going to do typically. So there's going to be a buffer overflow and then a shellcode injection. So shellcode injection just means that you load some portion of program that you want to run into memory somewhere. And so you basically are like loading up a program, but nothing is actually calling the function yet. It's not running. And then what you do is you find a buffer overflow attack. So this is somewhere where the data header is not matching up with what it's allowing you to put into the buffer. So it's like missing a check somewhere. There's some bug in the code. And so what you do is you do what's called a buffer overrun attack. And so let's say you've got this variable that's meant to carry a name, and the name is like 16 bytes long. Once you put 17 bytes in, you're going to start overwriting the value of whatever the variable that came before that name variable is. And if you know something about how the memory is stacked in there, you can start overwriting all the way up to where you get to the register that holds the return value of where that function is going to return back to from where it was called. So like when you call a function, it jumps in memory and then it creates a new frame buffer, and then all your variables are inside that, and then it starts running. Well, if you corrupt that, it will, instead of returning back to where it was supposed to go, you can have it return to the spot where you uploaded that malicious code. And then it runs that malicious code. And so doing that, you can call functions in the computer that are not actually called anywhere, that are, it's like this race case thing, and the program crashes right after. But you can do anything like that because that code all runs at the root level. That's behind what the operating system is able to check. And so you can change anything about a system if you can do a shellcode injection. And so anyways, we've taken that rather complicated fact about how computers run and just way simplified it down to where it's very straightforward to go ahead and execute one of those, but you're doing the real operation in it. The math is just a lot easier. And it's doing it in a real virtual machine. And so the cool part about the game is that every object, every NPC, everything runs on this virtual machine in sync with each other at the same time step. So if you go to the company that makes automated sliding doors and hack it so that if you show a different code or do something weird that the door will open, or maybe at 1 o'clock every day the doors open, then in the game world, after you hack that one business, you'll see that effect everywhere you go. So it's trying to link together this like very complicated, difficult to understand cyber world out there with the real world around people and help people think about how the two interact together.
And it all relates back to the micro learning.
It does. Yeah. The whole thing is I want to teach people how actual hacking works. Gamify.
Badass. So it's involving running these scripts and these shells to try to manipulate functions and run functions within computers by exploiting some 3-bit issue.
Yeah.
And then from that point and you're also using these characters to go to these large language models and practicing eliciting information out of them through questioning.
Yep.
That's fucking cool. That is really cool.
Yeah, it should be fun. I hope it connects well with people when we get the prototype out. So this week I want to have the prototype going, and then we're going to do a little team building and create like a little 10-level demo that will turn out to everyone to play. And if I can build a community around it, going back to what we talked about, that same methodology, if we can build a community around it, then we'll get serious and figure out how to actually create the whole game. But we've got the virtual machine running, we've got the compiler running, and then we got the LLMs working with the NPCs, and we have a few little puzzles you can solve right now.
That is cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Man, we've been running 3 hours, 12 minutes. So
Yeah, we can wrap this up.
Yeah, and I was still got way more I wanted to like ask about, but no, this is cool. This is way more than I thought that I would get. This is so awesome, so badass. So where can people find you?
Yeah, that's a impossible answer. I mean, like LinkedIn, I've got a LinkedIn. I don't have a social media presence. Like, this is a self-building thing that I need to start creating one. So I guess if people want to throw us on YouTube, I assume, something like that. So if people want to reach out to me in the comments, I'll definitely see it there. They can email me or whatever, and I promise I will get some kind of like social presence so that I can start talking with people.
Websites.
Yeah, so I've got my lukedupin.com you can check out. I have a blog, which I hardly ever update, but if I come up with anything interesting there, I've got a couple of videos. I haven't uploaded them, but I am trying to document the process of building this game now, and also the legislation project. I'm documenting that process. So I'm trying to get more externally focused. I'm a total introvert, and so I don't know. Nothing I do feels like it'd be interesting to anyone else, but I gotta start putting it out there.
Sounds like your image thing. What, Inked?
Yeah. So that one's fun. Inkedai.com.
All right, we'll add that in the video description. What else? What other?
Yeah, actually, that would probably be the coolest ones. That's one that I threw together over a weekend and then dabbled with it for a few more days to get tuned. And I really want to try and build a little Discord channel out of that, and just see if it's going to be useful for kids, see if it's going to be useful for artists. I don't know where that's going to go, but I think it's neat.
Dude, yeah, for sure. Your game, Hacker Game, where is that? What's that called again? And where can they find that?
Yeah, it's Hackman. So we will have an official unveiling of that. We'll throw it around all of our Discords and all over the internet when we get to that 10 level. So we have one more hurdle before we're going to show that to the public.
Where can they find you on Discord?
So the Coeur d'Alene Machine Group. I'd love for you to join the Inked AI group. I hang out in there.
Okay.
Those would be great ones.
Okay. What else? Let's see here. I know there's more. There's so much more. And I had my GitHub.
Yeah. So Luke Dupin, you can find me on GitHub. Reach out to me there.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it. So, see, you have more of a presence than you realize. So,
yeah, there's something out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, hey, everybody, I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I did. Be sure to check out all of Luke's information in the video description below. Be sure to like, subscribe, remember sharing is caring, and smash that bell for more data-driven updates. Bye!